And we're recording. And we're going to play some music. That's what we do in the new year. That's right. Just the two of us. Some soothing lyrics. Grover Washington. YouTube, if you tag us for this, I hope. Sunday morning. Nope. That is John. And then, fortunately, we'll have to turn that off because probably gets censored at some point on YouTube when we post this. But it's okay. In our ears, we heard it. Sorry, fans, if you don't get to enjoy that little soothing melody in the morning. But we try. We definitely do. But it is 2025, and it is just the two of us. Because our third wheel, once again, was, what's the word we're looking for here? He was coaxed, bamboozled. What is another word? Pussy whipped. I'm trying to think. There's many ways we can go with this. Into he was kidnapped into doing family stuff again. Jesus. Always something with that guy. But it's all right. It's all right. It's fair. It's all good. We're only kidding. Just kidding. You understand. We just like to joke around with each other from time to time. That's all. Pat says no. I mean, it depends on the day. Sometimes it's.
I don't believe in jokes. I think jokes are what lead. Um, jokes are what lead to horrible things. Like somebody once says, "Hey, you know what I think would be really great?" The other person goes, "I don't know. What?" And the first person goes, "I think it would be great if Donald Trump ran for president."
Or Hulk
And
Hogan making his own beer.
and for a while, everybody thought it was a really funny joke. And then he did it.
And reality set in.
So I told somebody several years ago, I can't remember who it was now, that Donald Trump could have become the greatest American hero ever. Now, it would have been the ultimate act of trolling as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have probably left the country in more chaos than it is. But I said Donald Trump could have been the greatest American hero if he ran for president, was elected, and then after he was elected, he got up there and he said, "I just pulled the biggest scam on all of you. I proved how fucked up and broken our political system is when I could run for president and win. I hereby resign the office." You know,
Yeah, I get your point. Ooh.
I think a lot of people would have admired him for that in a way. But like I said, then it would have, immediately had, not saying that Mike Pence would have been a bad president. He probably would have. Um, one thing you can say about Mike Pence, though, is that he would not have been as chaotic as Donald Trump as president. So, um,
Mm.
but yeah. Uh,
Oh, he's not. He's not very. He's not on the social media like Trump is. So like at
right,
the
right. He's low key. He's understated. He's temperate in his tone, even though his
he's a typical
rhetoric is not great either, but
a typical true politician per se in that
yes,
aspect.
yes, pretty much. So
Um,
anyway,
one
you
day,
were
one,
you were
one, Wouldn't that have made like a great movie? Like you just break out that scenario of him doing that, and they make that into like a movie.
Well, didn't they do something? I feel like they've done something like that once before, but I
They
can't remember
there
what.
is a there there is a movie that is similar aspect, but I think the person in the movie actually stays president and runs the country.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, interesting stuff. Interesting. And fans, I have been sick the past 4 days, so my voice is all over the place. So apologize if there's some inconsistencies with that. I'm hoping I'm looking actually semi okay for everyone today. I don't know.
Well, I
Just
mean, you've got more color than I do, just judging from the monitor, and I'm not sick, so
it's all about the lighting, brother. It's all about the lighting.
yeah, it probably
Got
is.
like this
Mm,
little fancy $10 I don't know, those little circle lights that all the
Yeah,
social
I
influencers get and all that jazz.
yeah,
Got that.
I'm also not sick. I also live up here in the Grand Old Northeast where the sun has been intermittently shining. Not that I've been going outside a lot lately anyway, so the joys of my current situation. So
Ah, yes. So we will make it through this. Our first podcast of 2025. We're a two-man show today. Two man.
yes, we don't have our third today because he's got obligations. I think I've run out of making jokes about that. If you listen to the show, if you follow the show, you've definitely heard them. So I'll go with this. You know, there's there's instances where only having two is better than having three. Okay.
Indeed.
And I will prove this, scientifically, if you will. A third boob sounds good theoretically, but in practice, it just looks really weird. Like that woman in Total Recall.
That's where I thought you were going with that one. The Total Recall. I
So,
remember
it's like,
that so much.
uh, uh, you know, stripped of context, three is better than two. But when you look at it, it's just kind of weird. So I guess what I'm trying to say is Jeremy is a third boob. Now that I have said that, all I can say is
Oh
I
man.
really hope he listens to this because I'm sure he'll have a good day now.
Oh yeah, he'll have some type of comeback for us on uh
Yeah, 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 yeah.
when he's
Okay,
back on
I've
the
made
next
my bad
show.
joke now.
Oh
Speaking
man.
of bad jokes, I got Facebook open here and it's scrolling through my feed and the NFL memes Facebook group is on here and it's showing
Oh,
some of the highlights of yesterday afternoon's Los Angeles Houston game, which
ooh,
I did not watch any of. I did not watch any of either game yesterday. Um,
I watched parts of both games yesterday.
but wow, I mean, talk about something I would not have expected going in the way the two teams have been playing lately. I would not have expected Houston to just thoroughly destroy the Chargers like
So when I
that.
turned on that game, I believe it was 20-6. Houston was winning. And it was just and I just missed the play where Herbert had thrown the pass to his running back to the on the flat, and it went off his hands right into the defender's hands of the Texans, and he ran it back almost for a touchdown. And I think that was the third interception of the day at that time. I did not see the other two interceptions, so I don't know if it was truly Herbert's fault or not. From the announcers, it sounded like, people on the Chargers didn't know how to catch football yesterday. But nonetheless, they just looked very outplayed. Besides that, let's see, after they went up, I think they kicked a field goal to make it 23-6. And then it was third, and I don't know if it was 16 or 24. I'm trying to remember because I watched parts of both games. And Herbert just kind of threw a pass, kind of just like, I don't want to say just throwing it up for luck, but he did see a guy open. The guy caught it. Defender from Texans just took a bad angle, and it was like an 84-yard touchdown. And I'm like, okay, let's make this a game. Not bad. And then on the kick for the extra point, what happens? The offensive line gets blown up. The kick gets blocked. Houston picks it up and runs it back for 2 points. And I was like, yes. I was like, I can't remember the last time I've watched the kick get blocked and returned for 2 points. But it was
Yeah,
just
that's why I was
like,
applauding because it's a rare play.
and
So
I was like, yeah, the Chargers like have no chance. Like they weren't doing good. And the funny part about it is, as the announcers were talking, it seemed like the Chargers had opportunities in the first half and didn't capitalize on them because it seemed like Houston was not playing very well in the first half either. And they were just capitalizing on the mistakes of the Chargers. So that was very interesting. But yeah, listen, that game I thought was going to be a closer game. I thought it was going to be a semi shootout, but closer than what it was. But no, Houston just second half just laid it into them. Um, so kudos to Houston. Um, Chargers is it's weird with the San Diego Chargers, Jesus, the Los Angeles Chargers, because they have a decently good offense, and their defense has, that's what I'll say about their defense. Their defense has like, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to, star players, but it seems like they don't play very good overall team defense. Um, from the
Mhm.
games that I've watched, they've definitely struggled in their defensive schemes, or whatever the case may be. But listen, Houston won. Houston would have been my pick anyway if I would have bet on those games yesterday. Um,
I would have bet on the Chargers, so I would have lost. That's why I don't bet.
gotta make small bets, Pat. Small. That's what I tell everyone. Listen,
No, I demand $1 million payoffs right away.
$5, $10, get your feet wet until you get, used to the way things work. It's okay. It's okay. We can have a crash course on this. I'll get my friend Kevin from Vegas. We'll do a podcast about this and we'll do a crash course. It's all right. Um,
Welcome to my TED Talk on how to lose all your money.
exactly. Um, so yeah, Houston, good for them. They're moving on. Um,
Yeah, it's good for them also because I don't know if you saw this floating around the internet, but I did. I thought it was pretty fucking hysterical. Um, every time that Houston has made the playoffs in their existence, they have always played the Saturday 4:30 game
I
on
heard
Wild
something
Card
about
Weekend.
that, but I didn't like really look into it. I didn't know if it was some
I
BS
mean, I
stuff
saw
going
where
on.
it had it broken down, and I don't remember how many years it was or like which specific years. But when I was looking at their history, because I was saying to myself, like last night when I was like just surfing around and shit, um, I was like, wait a minute, has Houston ever actually won a playoff game? I wasn't sure. They have. They've won a couple, but they've never gotten past the divisional round. You know, that's the furthest they've ever gotten in their franchise's existence, which is a little over 20 years now. Um, but when I was looking at the years, then I said, yeah, I think those years matches up with the graphic that I saw saying about this is when Houston has played on Wild Card Weekend every time they've been in the playoffs. So I think it's literally always been. So since they've gone through this like scheduling format and everything, even though they expanded the playoffs and during this time frame, what they all they really did, was there's three games on Sunday now instead of two, and there's the game on Monday night
Yeah.
That's what they did with the expanded playoffs. But so like Saturday at 4:30 has always been like the first playoff game, and it's like every time Houston's been in, that's when they've played.
So weird
It,
how they've
it's
done that
almost
to
it's
them.
almost as if the NFL is saying we acknowledge that nobody outside of Houston gives a rat's ass about the Texans.
It's so sad. I mean, it's sad to think about that or put that in perspective in that manner.
Yeah, but I guess it's also another example of, well, win a game or two in the playoffs, increase the prestige of your franchise, then you'll get like the more coveted time slots.
Yeah, yeah. And listen, like Houston, I don't think Houston had the regular season they wanted. I think they thought they would be better in the regular season. But listen, they have a good coaching staff. Their head coach is a good head coach. Um, they have a good team, so kudos to
They
them.
got they got the young QB,
Yeah,
It seems like he wasn't as good this year as he was in his rookie year, but he's still got a lot of
he's
potential and future ahead of him. So
he is to me, he's still going to he is long term. If we go 5 years out from now, to me, he'll still be, I think he'll be a top 15 quarterback in the NFL, put it that way. I don't have any worries that he won't be.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, yeah, you said like Houston didn't have the regular season they wanted. I mean, it's like yeah, they went 10-7, which is good enough to win you a division in some cases now.
yeah,
And
depending on your division, yeah.
this year it was just like it was for them last year when they went 10-7 because the AFC South the last 2 years has been ass.
Yes.
I mean, there were there were like three divisions this year, which basically were shit. The AFC East, the AFC South, and the NFC South. But you add up the records, the AFC South comes out as the worst because while the NFC South and the AFC East also had two teams lose double digit games. The AFC East at least had Buffalo who won 13, and their bottom two teams were the Jets and the Patriots who won 5-4, whereas the bottom two teams in the AFC South were Jacksonville and Tennessee who won 4-3. And in the NFC South, Tampa was just like Houston at 10-7, but Carolina and New Orleans both won 5 games, and then the second place finisher in each division won 8-9. So yeah, the AFC South was the worst division in football this year.
Yeah, pretty much. They were bad.
So I
So
mean, it kind of helps when you got a low bar to clear. Um,
it
it's
does.
funny
It
based upon
does.
like point differential and what and everything, because that's the other thing too. In the regular season, Houston scored 372 points. They gave up 372 points.
Exactly. Seriously. They were even.
Meaning they should have been 8-9 or 9-8,
Mm.
depending. So, um, so they got, you could say definitely that they got a little lucky and everything. But like, I'm just looking up Stroud's stats comparing this year to last year. So,
I mean, you go from his good rookie year to his sophomore year, and
yeah,
there's always that weird sophomore slump. I don't know really how much true it is for all the sports. I mean, I guess in some aspects it is true for certain players, but not everybody. But yeah, I think the expectations were high for them to be a 13, 14 win team with what they had and what they added in the offseason. So,
yeah.
a little down, but hey, you still made the playoffs. You took out a good Chargers team. They weren't playing very well at the end of the season. And we could talk about that other AFC game shortly then too, because I knew the outcome of that game a mile away.
Yeah.
Uh,
So Stroud, comparing this year to last year, his completion percentage was almost exactly the same. It dropped from 63.9 to 63.2%. Now, I don't know what like the league average completion percentage was because 63% seems almost on the low side anymore. I don't know. Um, he played in every game this year, whereas last year he missed 2 games, and he threw for like 400 fewer yards. He threw 3 fewer touchdowns, and he threw 7 more interceptions. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Okay.
Because he had the lowest interception percentage last year. But another reason possibly for this, he again 2 more games played, but he was sacked 14 more times this year
Mm,
than he was last year. So that could have had something to do with it. Hard to say. He did throw an interception yesterday. Obviously, it didn't really matter with the
no.
way that the game turned out.
No, definitely not.
But yeah, so he's still got a lot of potential, of course. Potential, potential.
I mean, look in the oh
They didn't
yeah,
have a great
his
wide receiver core this year either. It was well, I mean, Nico Collins got over 1,000 yards, but he also only played 12 games. Tank Dell was hurt a
he,
little bit, and then they had the whole Stephon Diggs shit going on. So
yeah, this Spawn Diggs thing kind of like took some air away from that, and Dell, getting hurt, that didn't help either.
where is
Um,
Stephon Diggs going to play next year?
you know what? I actually was looking at, free agencies for the free agency list for next year, just because my team needs an offensive line. Um, and after looking at the offensive line and realizing that the majority of the offensive linemen on there that are free agents that are actually good are, in their early to mid 30s. So that is going to be an interesting concept of how my team goes about fixing that offensive line. But nonetheless, the wide receiver offense free agency list is very interesting because there's a lot of named wide receivers on there. I'll just put it that way. I don't want to say star wide receivers, but a lot of wide receivers on that list that are, very well known names.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, who are they going to go to? Are they going to go back to the teams, new teams? Are some of them either going to bother to try to sign some of these players because of stuff that's happened in this previous season? So we'll see where the money goes for those wide receivers. I don't think it's going to be a good year for wide receivers as far as cashing in on the free agent market.
Yeah, the
Sure.
Giants desperately need, well, not desperately, but they could really use a number two receiver. It looks like Neighbors is a number one.
He's legit. He is.
Yeah.
He 100% is.
Darius Slayton, he's soldiered on all these years for the Giants. I have a feeling he wants to move on, and I don't blame him. Wan'Dale Robinson is a slot receiver, but he's not really a number two, because
Yeah.
see, one of the things that people had against Wan'Dale Robinson, even though he was a second round pick, were like, the measurables and everything. And he's, small. He's got short arms, so he can't,
Stretch it
get through the
out.
ball.
Yeah.
But it's like some of the you look at some of like the advanced stats and everything and see like, like yards per route for him and stuff like that. Admittedly, it's because they run like a lot of these like wide receiver screens and shit and for everything.
Oh God. I'm so
His like
tired of
his like
seeing
his
those
like yards
things.
per route are like minimal. It's like he's like catching the ball like 3 yards down the line of down the field. So it's like he's not a downfield threat. And obviously the Giants have quarterback issues, so
That
it's
doesn't
all
help either.
it's all kind of it's all kind of
Believe
silly
me, I
to
get
say
it.
we need to get a solid number two wide receiver before you know who the fuck's throwing the ball. But um,
I know, I know. I get it.
it is an area that the Giants need to look at this offseason. I mean, obviously quarterback's the biggest thing, but
I
they
know.
they have issues like on the interior defensive line, the interior offensive line. You probably still throw right tackle in there. The secondary, especially cornerback, Deontay Banks hasn't lived up to being a first round pick yet. So yeah, a lot of holes for that team, obviously. That's why you only win 3 games.
Yeah. That's why we only won five. I mean, offensive line needs super help. We need some work. Still need some interior D linemen and another edge rusher. I think our linebackers in secondary are good. Maybe some depth would be fine. As far as wide receivers, Keenan Allen is a free agent, but he's already said that he wants to play next year, but he's only going to go to one or two teams. He's either coming back to Chicago or he's going back to the Chargers. That's pretty much what he said. I think he will come back to Chicago depending on who the coach is. And if it's something he doesn't feel that's going to help the team, he'll probably, take a veteran minimum of whatever it is and go back to the Chargers and go play with Herbert. And I don't blame him. You know what I mean? I think Keenan Allen's a good vet. Um, but I'd see him stay in Chicago, but time will tell in regards to that. Um, just frustrating. I keep getting the alerts on my phone. We have completed uh the first interview with so and so. We've completed the first interview, and like I think I've seen like 9 interviews they've done already, virtual interviews. The Bears have completed. So it's kind of like, can we just get this right? Because otherwise, I'm going to lose my mind next year. And
Well,
then the
breaking news.
oh
If
shit,
if the Bears had one guy on their head coaching radar, he is off of it now.
is that Vrabel going to New England?
Mike Rabel is going to become the Patriots' new head coach, according to stories that are breaking now.
Yeah,
And
that
Rabel
doesn't
becoming
surprise me.
all I can say about Rabel becoming the Patriots' new head coach is, duh, really? That's what happened? I mean, I think we
Yeah,
all knew from the moment they fired Mayo that they were going to hire Rabel.
yeah. I think we interviewed Vrabel as well, but at the end of the day, like it was I, just you know just throwing it out there to interview him, and he's going to take the interviews, of course. But going back to New England is kind of, I think, was his thing anyway. I think he was looking for that at some point. So kudos to him.
Yeah,
Hope
let me see if I can.
hope he helps that team out in regards to their process. And on
I'm
to the
on oh, that's I'm on Pro Football Rumors right now.
okay,
Looking because they always have an article about like updating like the head coaching tracker thing where it says like guys who are like connected to jobs either through like interviews or turned down interviews or whatever the case might be. And as I'm scrolling through looking for that right now, I see a thing here saying that was published late last night. Deion Sanders eyeing Raiders head coach job. All I can say about that is, doesn't that make the most sense?
I mean, here's the thing too, and it's weird. I feel like with him, like he did an interview and he said the only way he would be enticed to coach in the NFL is if he's coaching Shador and Hunter
Right.
on the same
Which can't
team,
happen,
which
obviously.
it's not happening, unfortunately,
Yeah.
because there's multiple teams that want both those kids.
Well,
So,
of course. But I mean, one of them, they're, unless something very unexpected happens, I mean, they're going to be two of the top three picks in the draft. I can't see either guy going past three right now, the way things are probably going to shake out. I mean, I know the draft is still 3.5 months away, but
and I'm gonna tell you only one way that happens. And the only way that happens, Pat, is if the Raiders decide to trade Max. They decide to be okay, we'll trade Max to one of these top picks. Hey, here's a great defensive player. We'll give you him and next 2 first round picks or 2 next year second round picks, whatever, as compensation. So they can draft both those kids. That's the only feasible way I can see that happening.
yeah, I mean, it would take a hell of a lot of doing for one thing. But the biggest thing
If
is
I can make it happen on Madden football, it can happen in real life.
no NFL team in their right mind should allow Deion Sanders anywhere near Shader Sanders. Like let's say, well, hiring him as coach would happen before he got drafted. But let's just say it didn't happen this year. And it's like, well, let's say we're fast forwarding a year and Shader Sanders is playing for, let's just say, the Titans or the Browns, because they're the teams that hold the top two picks. The Titans have an obvious quarterback need. The Browns, while they have all this money committed to Sean Watson, it looks like he could miss next year again after he re-injured his Achilles.
Yeah.
So, it's very possible that they could do something. So let's just say the Titans or the Browns have Shader Sanders, and the Titans fire Brian Callahan or the Browns fire Kevin Stefanski, which are both possibilities next year, depending upon how their teams go.
hmm
It would be like literally like the worst thing that I can think of for an NFL team to say, yes, you can coach your son. I can't see how that would work. You
Yeah,
know,
it would
so
be, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, to be honest, you know, all these rumors get put out there. Why? Because it's part of the sports media, propaganda, stories, you know, try to get something to talk about, because there are times where there's really not a lot of, stuff to talk about when it comes to sports. It's just the gist of it, it's
yeah.
each league has their own stuff going on. There's not really not too many big storylines. So, once the off season starts hitting, especially in the NFL, they throw all types of shit out there. I think at the end of the day, Deion's staying at Colorado. I really think Deion's going to be at Colorado for at least 3 more years. Honestly, maybe 4. I think before he leaves on to his next job, maybe it is the NFL, or maybe, he does become one of those lifelong, you know, college coaches coaching. Maybe he coaches for a total of 15, 20 years. Maybe he ends his career at Florida State. Maybe he ends his career at Colorado. Who knows? But at the end of the day, I think he's gonna be at Colorado for a couple more years at least.
Well, you
Uh,
you just brought up something pretty interesting there. Um, oh, you bastards. Sorry, I'm looking at my ShopRite order report and they substituted an item for me, even though I have substitutions checked like off. They still
Specific
substituted an
ones.
item. They still substituted an item, which is like really not nearly the same item. It's something I don't want. I almost feel like telling them I don't want when I get there to say like, yeah, I don't want this, but they've now charged me for it. So that's the disadvantage, I guess, of doing the pickup orders. But anyway, you just brought up something very interesting I hadn't even really considered. Dion going to Florida State.
I mean, he wanted to go there when we needed a coach, and then, we ended up going with Mike Norvell, right? And that's fine.
And
And
you got to figure he's on a very hot seat next year.
yeah, and it's very. I've just never seen. And listen, this could be and this could be part of the portal. You know what I mean? This could be part of the whole thing about the portal and transfers, but it's just baffled me how you go from an undefeated team. Yes, and they lost their bowl game to Georgia, but let's be honest, that Florida State team was all second and third string kids playing in that game. Let's just be honest. They weren't going to beat that Georgia. They weren't going to beat Georgia's first and second string players. That wasn't happening. Um, it's just amazing how that team went from undefeated to getting good, talented players from other programs like Alabama and LSU and whatnot to fill holes, but yet that team was not able to come together as one cohesive unit to perform well at all during that season. It was one of the craziest turns I've seen. Um, for a college football team. I think I had seen an article too, where at the end of the college regular season, they did ESPN did an article on like going from winning record to a losing record and how fast they like got back to relevancy and whatnot. Um, and there were some teams on there and whatnot. I was like, okay, so this has definitely happened before. I said, but it's been a while. So it's just very daunting to see like how they just did a, a total flip-flop of being so good to being so bad.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and Norvell's on a hot seat. He's going to be, because technically, a lot of that's on him. Even though the kids say there's a good culture in the program right now, there's something
The
just
culture is actually damn good.
it's just the like what happened? Like, what happened with the coaching and the practice? I don't know. There's just a lot that just doesn't make sense to me. I know he fired some coaches. He gave some of his money back to help for the NIL and stuff like that. So, yeah, there could be a time where Norvell's out and Florida State's like, hey, Dion, why don't you come home? Is he going to take it? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not.
Mom Betty home. All right. Well, I found what I was looking for here. Um,
Yes.
one thing I also wondered while I'm about to segue into this, I don't think anybody was really satisfied with the Giants defense this year. If you were a Giants fan, now again, injuries started to rack up, especially once Dexter Lawrence went out. But they had some very obvious deficiencies, and like the linebackers, like Okereke and McFadden, they seemed to play a lot better last year than they did this year, and I think that had to do with the scheme. So I don't know that Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator, is necessarily the right fit for the personnel that they have. So that's the thing that always kind of bothers me is where teams like go and hire somebody for a position and like he's going to run a scheme that doesn't really seem to suit the personnel they already have. I just never really understand why they do that. But Bowen was Vrabel's defensive coordinator with the Titans. So might Vrabel want him back with him in New England? And if he does, and I were the Giants, I would say, here you go. But
Hmm.
anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
so according to Pro Football Rumors, then their 2025 NFL head coaching search tracker. So they got Bears, Jaguars, Raiders, Patriots, Saints, Jets, as you know.
Hmm.
So Vrabel interviewed with the Bears on the 8th,
Yep.
was mentioned as a candidate for the Jaguars, was a rumored candidate for the Raiders, interviewed with the Patriots on the 9th, and is now going to be hired. Uh, had an interview being arranged with the Saints, so I guess it never happened. Um, and interviewed back on the 3rd with the Jets. So yeah, everybody was like looking at him.
Yeah.
Now, since you're a Bears fan, would you like me to go over the list of potential candidates they have for the Bears?
Oh my God. Go for
So
it.
I'll give you the candidate, their current position, if they have one, and what the result was. Bill Belichick, head coach, North Carolina, University of North Carolina, expressed interest. Now, I believe that was before he was hired as North Carolina head coach.
Correct.
And there was a thing that popped up this week saying the Raiders were interested in talking to him, but like Belichick's like, no, I'm at North Carolina. So,
Which
uh,
will be interesting to see how that plays out next year too. But go ahead.
yes. Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady, interview requested. Interim head coach Thomas Brown, interview expected.
Pass
Iowa
on both
State
of those
head,
guys.
hmm? Hmm?
Pass on both. Well,
Iowa
no.
State, hmm?
Go ahead.
Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell, interview expected.
Pass on him.
I'm still always wary of college to pro, you know. Some guys have done it, but seems like more guys don't. So
Real quick before you go, like, so the Bills offensive quarter, like, I'm okay with them interviewing, and he's done good for Josh Allen, but I've seen deficiencies like not being able to produce a good run game, so I'm not
yeah,
thrilled with that. So he's a hard pass for me.
yeah.
Brown, it's sad. Like I doing an
Interim head
interview,
coach is one of the most thankless positions ever.
and it's sad because the dude is a good dude. He's respected. Like he deserves to be a coach in some capacity in the NFL. But to be honest with you, moving forward as the head coach of our team, it's not what they need, and it's sad because the guys respect him, and I'm
Yeah,
not trying to diss him in any aspect because he's done the best he's can with what he's been dealt with this whole season. So I give him total props for what he's done. But at the end of the day, like, if they're able to keep him on the team in some capacity, that's great. If not, as far as what they need, it's a pass.
yeah, and very rare is the interim head coach who gets elevated to full head coach.
And is
That
successful,
yeah,
honestly.
that very rarely happens, and I think in this is very strange. The only instance I can remember of that happening in the past was 35 years ago. After the Buccaneers fired Ray Perkins, they had a guy named Richard Williamson as their interim head coach. They ended up giving him the full-time coaching job, but I think he lasted a season or two. So he wasn't there very long afterwards.
Didn't they do that with the Raiders coach too?
Oh yeah, the Raiders just did that with Antonio Pierce.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's out on his ass now too. So it was funny too because it was like everybody seemed to think he was doing such a good job at the end of the year last year, and now it's like a year later, everybody said, well, he was clearly in over his head and blah blah blah, and I was like, ah, that's too bad because as a Giants fan, again, I have great affection for Antonio Pierce. So
Understood. Absolutely.
now about Brady, you mentioned about his work with Josh Allen. He, of course, has a lot of credit for working with Joe Burrow when he was at LSU.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I
yeah,
just, I just, I just feel it's too much. Like it's college.
yeah,
It's like you're going to Chicago. You need to have a good run scheme. You can't just be pass happy. Like I
yeah,
know you're good with the quarterbacks, and I get it. But like if you're not getting any good run games going in there, then I'm sorry, Caleb Williams is not at Joe Burrow and Josh Allen status yet. So it's a little different, when you've had those guys and whatnot going into this situation. But the running aspect of there is his offensive scheme worries me. Continue, and I'm sorry.
yeah. I mean, and another thing too is like, okay, yeah, he's great with the quarterbacks and everything, but as head coach, he can't be working with Caleb Williams 95% of the time. He's got to be the head coach.
Yep.
So, anyway, former Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll interviewed on the 9th.
Pass.
Vikings defensive coordinator and former Dolphins head coach and current NFL sewer, not sewer as in where, sewage goes, but as in he's suing the league. Brian Flores, interview requested.
Up in the air on that one.
Yeah. Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn and Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson both interviewed yesterday, it says.
Glenn on the fence. Johnson, yes.
Yeah. Giants offensive coordinator Mike Kafka interviewed on the 9th. I can't tell you anything about him anymore right now because I don't know how much he was actually doing with play calling. Supposedly Dable had taken over the play calling this year.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like, I get the
Yeah.
interview, but if he wasn't doing play calling, it's a no for me.
Yeah. So Commanders offensive coordinator and former Cardinals head coach Cliff Kingsbury interview requested.
I say yes to that. He should have been the
Now,
offensive coordinator to begin with.
yeah. Now there was just for shites and giggles. There was a thing I saw while scrolling to find this article saying that Jaden Daniels' presence alone may tempt him to stay where he is and in the position he's in.
Yeah, I get it. I get
Yeah.
it 100%. He's a good quarterback.
Yeah. Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy interview blocked.
Yeah, and I think as of Thursday or Friday, wasn't his contract has officially
I think it's
expired?
this coming week.
Okay. I heard
Yeah.
something
So I
about
was like, once his contract is up, can't he go interview with him then?
yeah,
He's not
pretty
under
much.
contract anymore, so I don't know how that's going to play out, that whole situation.
Still a hard pass on that. No,
Yeah.
thank you. I don't want no ex Green Bay Packers coach as my fucking coach. No way.
You don't want the anti Steve McMichael, as it were, because he played that last season of his career in Green Bay after being a career Bear.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Jim McMahon was on that winning Super Bowl team as well.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
McMahon played for the Packers too. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Well, hey, I've seen crazier things. Remember, T.O. did all that shit with putting the ball on the star in Dallas, and then he went and played for the Cowboys. So
Yeah, of course,
the only
that's how
thing
the
that would have
NFL
ever
works.
possibly been funnier than some of those situations would have been like if Roger Clemens had thrown to Mike Piazza instead of throwing at Mike Piazza.
Yeah. 100% true.
Anyway, Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken interview requested.
I'm fine with that one.
Cardinals offensive coordinator Drew Petzing interviewed on the 8th.
No.
Former Commanders and Panthers head coach and Bears linebacker Ron Rivera to interview.
I'm on the fence on that one.
So I guess that means that there's an interview scheduled. Yeah, nothing against Rivera because he has obviously had success.
Yes.
a two-time retread isn't really gonna, even if he's got connections to the franchise, um, isn't really going to excite a whole lot of people. And most, I don't, if I were to go look through the whole like pantheon of NFL coaches and see like how guys did on their third head coaching job, I'm just assuming I'm not going to find a tremendous amount of success.
Yeah, I'd have to look that up too. I'm not 100% sure.
Like that would be like Bill Parcells with the Jets as an example. Now he
Yeah,
did actually do decently with the Jets, but he also wasn't there for very long. So
very true.
yeah. Or like I know Curly Lambeau was head coach for two teams after the Packers. I think it was the Redskins and the Cardinals. I don't remember what order, but I don't think he did very well either place. That's obviously in like practically ancient times as far as the NFL is concerned, but the
Yeah.
point remains, yeah. Or like look at all the times Wade Phillips ended up being a head coach. I
Oh
assume
God,
those were
yeah.
interim, but still. Oh, I
Still.
just thought of one. Dan Reeves with the Falcons. He did take them to a Super Bowl. They got destroyed, but it
Yeah.
happened,
Yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah, he did. He
yeah.
did. Got about
Uh,
that one.
Broncos senior personnel executive and I believe former Stanford University head coach David Shaw interview requested.
No.
Steelers offensive coordinator and former Falcons head coach Arthur Smith interview requested.
Not sure on that one.
Yeah. Vrabel, as we mentioned, and Dolphins defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver interviewed on the 9th.
No
I
bueno.
can say I have great sentiment for Anthony Weaver, being that he played at Notre Dame and he was like, he was a leader on the team when he played. You could tell. His pro career never quite he got injured a lot, I think. But it seems like he's gotten some respect as a coach. I think he used to also coach for the Ravens.
Yeah.
Um,
I just
so
that
I kind of almost like to see that, but I don't know if I have no idea if he's qualified or not.
I don't think the Bears are the team for him to be his first challenge.
Yeah, it kind of almost seems like it's not. I think, see, here's the thing too. I think any team that's got a young quarterback like Caleb Williams is going to want an offensive minded coach because you've got to make sure that he develops. So, um,
And listen, there are enough, and believe me, there are enough talented defensive coordinators out there, young and old, that are still capable of doing their jobs for you to
mhm,
hire, to bring
yeah,
on, to keep the defense from not, being bad. That's not a that should not be an issue. I don't want that to be like an excuse in any manner because there's really no reason for that, to be honest.
yeah.
Um,
Now,
so
one thing I just wanted to say about going over this list as well. So some guys on this list again have already interviewed. Some guys it says interview expected. Some guys it says interview requested. Now, of the guys who it says interview requested, Brady, well, the Bills play today. Flores, the Vikings play tomorrow. Kingsbury, the Commanders play today. Monken, the Ravens played last night and are now still alive. Shaw, he's not an on-field coach, but the Broncos play today. And Smith, the Steelers played last night and are now eliminated. So there's always that thing you can't be interviewing these guys while they're still like alive and everything unless they're on a bye week. So
or it's an off day, I
they
think
still
it
can't
is.
interview some of those guys until they get eliminated. So if they want to interview Smith, he's free now because the
Yes.
Steelers are eliminated. But the other guys, you got to wait to see if they're still going to be playing next week. So like Monken, they still couldn't interview for at least another week. Sometimes these teams, it's always telling too how quickly some of these teams fill these vacancies because a lot of times you see teams like snap these guys up like lickety split. Now, of course, they have to make sure they're adhering to the Rooney rules and everything,
Yes.
which, again, some teams have been accused of circumventing. And, um, for the Patriots, they at least got around it because they interviewed Byron Leftwich, at
Of
the very
course.
least. I don't know if they interviewed anybody else who is a minority. Um, but at the same time, again, it's like I think from the moment they fired Mayo, I think we all knew they were going to hire Vrabel. So it's
Yeah,
like you
100%.
have to still go through the motions. And I don't think if teams are so certain that that's their guy, I don't think that they should not be able to hire that guy. But it's like so. But the problem is, it does make the Rooney Rule a bit of tokenism, unfortunately.
It does.
And that's why Brian Flores is suing the league. You know, he feels like he was wronged by the Dolphins, which he could have been, but I also heard that he was kind of a dick. Like he would just like start randomly screaming at players during like warm-ups and shit. You know, there were some stories about that. But he accused
Yeah.
the Giants and I think one or two other teams of basically just bringing him in for token interviews. And I was like, dude, based upon your performance at the Dolphins, I wouldn't have minded you as head coach. But when I heard about like the way you conducted yourself, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't want any part of you. Now, obviously, Dable hasn't exactly had rousing success here, especially the last two seasons. But when I heard those stories, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if that's the guy then, you know?
Yeah. With Flores is like
It has
you
nothing to
hear,
do with your skin color. I'm sorry. I mean, I'd
yeah,
love to see a black head coach on the Giants sideline for Christ's sake. But
with Flores, it was just a matter of like he, he was successful there to a point, but then there was like the good and the bad with it. And it was kind of like I don't know if I wanted like that. And you don't know what's true, what's not true. But at the same point, you don't want that being on your team when you need a head coach. Because if you're a team that's already in dysfunction, you don't want to add any more quote
right,
unquote more dysfunction if
yeah,
it's not needed.
your team's got you got to have the respect of your locker room. I'm not saying you need to
Correct.
be buddy buddy with them because we've
No.
seen a lot of coaches who I think are too buddy buddy with their team and it's detrimental. Wade Phillips. I mean,
Yes.
I every time I saw Wade Phillips as head coach, I always thought he was a great cheerleader for his team, but I didn't necessarily think he was a great coach, you know. And
Correct.
for me, that really crystallized when he was with the Cowboys, especially back in 2007 when the Giants beat the Cowboys in Dallas. You know, that was like when the Giants, that was the year the Giants beat the undefeated Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Hmm.
But, you know, they beat the Cowboys in Dallas, and that was the game where supposedly Jerry Jones had put two tickets to the conference championship game on every player's, like in every player's locker before the game. And I think that story got out. And then the day after, I think Wade Phillips in his like, you know, post game slash postseason press conference was like, I feel like the better team lost yesterday. And I was just like,
Oh,
and obviously because I was also a Giants fan, I wasn't having any of it, but I also never really thought Wade Phillips was a good head coach. I always thought he was a good defensive coordinator, but never a good head coach. But I was just saying, um, you know what? It's the playoffs and it can be a crapshoot and this, that, and the other thing. But when you lose on your home field, you can't say the better team lost.
true.
So anyway, Florida's 3 years in Miami. They went 5-11, 10-6, and 9-8. They finished last, second, and third, and they didn't make the playoffs in any of the three seasons.
Hmm.
And it could also be, you know, maybe they didn't think he was the right head coach for Tua. I don't know. So
I mean, he turned things around. Plus, he turned things around and then, was given a young quarterback and, had to kind of rebuild. So, I mean, it's not totally bad, record wise per se.
yeah,
But yeah, just the stories and whatnot. That's the part that's, you know, it's he said, she said. So you gotta take it with a grain of salt until you know what the full truth is. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like you don't want to invite that as your new head coach just because you just don't. Because you
yeah,
just don't know. You can interview him as many times as you want, but you don't want to take the risk if you're looking for a head coach. And where he's at right now as a coordinator, he's doing good. He's a good coordinator. I'm not gonna lie. Like I think he's done good as a coordinator in his career as well. So
yeah. I mean, there's really no shame in saying it. There's again Wade Phillips. Uh,
listen, I'm gonna
there
tell you right
really
now.
isn't any shame in saying you were a great coordinator, but you weren't a great head coach.
Nope. And I sat there and I had a conversation with a coworker about this. We were talking about, coordinators becoming head coaches. And I was like, you know what? At a certain point, if I was like just a top defensive coordinator in the league and it's like, you know what? Let me try this head coach. And I got offered the job and I was hired as a head coach of a team, 3-year contract, 4-year contract, whatever. You know what? And I didn't do well because I didn't do well as far as running a team as a head coach and I failed. That's fine. Go back to being what I know how to do as a defensive coordinator. And to be honest with you, I would be fine with that let me go down as trying to be the greatest defensive coordinator in NFL history. I'm fine with that instead of trying to become the greatest NFL head coach in NFL history. You know, I'd be fine if I was regulated as one of the top defensive coordinators, and I would stay with that. I would have no problems with it at all. And I think
Yeah.
some of these coaches just, and you learn, from your mistakes as a head coach, and some want to try, have another try at it, and things do go better, but they could ultimately be fired or they could be successful. But I think there's only so many chances you should get to becoming a head coach again, and just be kind of like at some point, I'm gonna stay in my lane of what I know how to do. Let's coach these guys up and let's just put out the best defense or offense I can and run with it. It's the way I kind of look at it. I think sometimes the coaches don't know how to kind of reel back and stay where they're in their wheelhouse, if you want to put in those terms.
Yeah.
Just like, for example, kind of like um I'm gonna slide over to this Ravens Steelers game because I have some and this is kind of like another coaching narrative that's being put out there by sports media because I need something to talk about. But listen, one, kudos to the Ravens. When I turned that game on last night, they just ran all over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Those they couldn't do shit
Yeah. I don't
between
I don't
between
think anybody was very surprised by this too. The Steelers were obviously on a downward spiral.
um between Derrick Henry and the RPO plays that were given to Lamar to calm his nerves in the playoff game. Yeah, they ran that game to perfection, to be honest. And I wasn't expecting Pittsburgh to win. And so kudos to the Ravens. To be honest with you, like there's one AFC game today. So we have the Bills versus the Broncos at 1 o'clock, first game of the day. So if the Bills do what they're supposed to and beat Denver, then Kansas City will be playing the Texans. Yeah,
Mhm.
they play their lowest, and then we'll have the Bills versus the Ravens. Listen, I know everyone's on the Bill bandwagon of going to the Super Bowl, but to be honest with you, I wouldn't count out the Ravens whatsoever. I mean, I'm not counting out the Chiefs either, but I think
No,
the
that's the
Ravens,
thing. It's like I
I
sorry to keep interrupting. I couldn't you can't overlook, the only team out of those four teams, like again, let's just assume the Bills are going to win today, not a given. But if that happens and you got like you said, Chiefs, Texans, Bills, Ravens. The only team I'm going to overlook in that scenario is the Texans. They're clearly a step below the other three.
correct.
The other three all have question marks, but they all have reasons where you can say, I can definitely see them going all the way.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing with the Ravens right now, their defense is playing well. And that run game, they're just between the RPOs and then the true run plays with Derrick Henry. There's no other team in the playoffs right now in the AFC that has a run game like Baltimore does. Like honestly.
Isn't it pretty damned amazing that arguably two of the most valuable players in the NFL this year were running backs?
Correct.
Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley.
100%, man.
I
100%.
thought this was a passing league now.
Yeah. And then look what they're doing in the run game. Um,
Yeah, and obviously the Ravens have the threat of Lamar, every time. And now see that's the only reason I could I'm not even saying it's the reason I would doubt Lamar, but it's a reason people doubt the Ravens is because they still believe that Lamar sucks in the playoffs. I didn't see his numbers from last night's game. I'm gonna go look them up now.
he
But
had
I also wonder if it's one of those things that people fixate on too much.
They do. He didn't throw for 200 yards last night, put it that way. But he didn't
Did he
need to.
need to?
No. I think he threw for a little over 170. He had 2 touchdown passes, but Derrick Henry had 186 yards rushing.
Yeah. Okay, so he was 16 to 21 for 175 yards and two
Okay.
touchdowns, no interceptions, got sacked once for a loss of 10 yards, so net 165 yards passing. But he also carried 15 times for 81 yards, which,
Yes.
yeah, that's not like a lot per carry for him, but I guess, hey, if your quarterback's averaging 5 yards per carry, that's still good. I mean, you're
That's
not
good
supposed to
stuff.
be able to average 5 yards per carry in the NFL. That's a college number. But yeah, Henry, 26 carries for 186, 7 yards a carry, and 2 touchdowns. So yeah, he didn't need to throw for 300 yards yesterday.
No.
They
With
went for
the
299 yards, 6 yards per carry. They totally gutted that team.
but
I don't need to have seen the game. All I got to do is look at that stat sheet, and I know that
listen, at halftime, Pat,
it was 21
Derek
nothing. Yeah.
but at halftime, Derrick Henry had 13 carries for 100 yards.
It's like I'm not saying I was
So think
wrong.
about that. He had 186. He only had 86 yards rushing in the second half, but they
Yeah,
didn't really need they just that was just kind of like the to put the icing on the cake as far as the game's concerned. And I think Lamar had 64 yards rushing at halftime, and I don't remember how many passing yards he had, but they didn't have to do much. They had the game in the bag already. They had over 300 total yards in the first half against
yeah,
Pittsburgh,
yeah.
when
It's
Pittsburgh only had 44 total yards in the first half.
right.
That's
So the game was already over. I mean, it was 21 nothing. Pittsburgh cut it to 14 twice, but couldn't ever get any closer.
no.
So, you know,
And the
um,
thing I wanted to bring up about that game is Pittsburgh. There's been rumors about teams should try to ask to trade for Mike Tomlin, or is Mike Tomlin's time up? The fans are getting frustrated. This, that, and the next thing.
yeah,
Here's what I have.
but this is the Pittsburgh Steelers who have had three coaches since Richard Nixon was president.
And here's the thing. To all those Pittsburgh Steelers fans, I will take, as a Bears fan, I will take having a coach that has never had a losing season in your franchise while he's coached them, going to multiple playoff games and won a Super Bowl, to dealing with mediocrity, only making the playoffs 2 or 3 times in the past 20, 25 years, going to one Super Bowl that you should have won, but you blew it because, let's get pass happy with a quarterback who's not good at pass happiness, and go through head coach and GM one after another and have quarterback debacle after quarterback debacle. I will take what you have at Pittsburgh. If you want to trade for what we have at Chicago or even New York or even Cleveland, you fans should be happy in regards to what you have and not have to deal with what some of the other franchises have to deal with. And I get there's a standard. I understand that. But who the fans should be mad at this point, which should be their GM. First off, I don't know what the fuck their GM was doing, bringing in nothing against Justin Fields, but just as like an outside observer, we're bringing in Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. What are we doing here? And what do we do with the defense? What do we do with the offense? The rest of it, I just feel like their moves they made were not the greatest for that team, and it caused a little bit of drama, per se, in the Pittsburgh Steelers locker room because of the whole quarterback situation.
Which is
And
still a very big question mark for them.
yeah, and to be honest with you, I think as far as next year, Russell Wilson is a free agent at the end of the season. I do not believe Justin is. I think maybe he is. I don't know.
No, I think Fields might be a free agent because I've seen him mentioned a lot as like
He
a
might be
potential
too.
quarterback for the Giants next year.
Oh, he might be a free agent too. I didn't double check. I know Russell is because they've been brought up. So yeah,
Well,
Pittsburgh's gonna
let
need to.
me.
If that's the case, Pittsburgh's gonna need to look for a quarterback again. You know what I mean? And I'm sorry, Russell. For all intents and purposes, I am glad that Pete Carroll blocked the trade for the Bears, trading for Russell Wilson that year, because I think that probably would have set us back even more. So thank you for blocking that trade. Hindsight's 2020. I was mad at that at first, but no, great move. I appreciate it because I just don't know what's happened to Russell Wilson and his mojo because it's not there.
Yeah, it's very strange. Okay. Hmm.
But Pittsburgh fans, be mad at your GM, not at your coach. Your coach is trying to get the most out of your players. You had a winning season again. Sorry, but you're not going to beat the Baltimore Ravens. your GM needs to fix the roster for your coach to
So
get
both
back to
guys,
be more relevancy.
both guys appear to be free agents.
All right. So they're gonna have to look for a new quarterback.
So they could bring back 36-year-old Russell Wilson. They could bring back 25-year-old Justin Fields, who didn't play much,
He only played 6 games, the first
and
6 games.
who still has like a lot of question marks surrounding him. But
Yeah,
I don't know. Do
that's
not
the whole
know.
situation. Their GM needs to fix that roster. That's who the fans should really be mad at, not the coaching staff. Coaches are doing what they're supposed to do because they
Oh, here
weren't.
the Giants have $27 million in dead money for next year already.
Wow, really? I
Well,
was looking
22
at.
of that is Daniel Jones.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. I was
Now, the
looking
good
at.
thing about that, of course, is that they will not have any more dead Daniel Jones money after next year.
I was actually looking at the Bears because they're supposed to. So there was two numbers I saw. I think the first one the Bears had were supposed to have $86 million in cap space, but if you take the draft, the players in the draft out of that, it's down to like 74, 75 million, which is still in the like fifth or sixth most, which is fine. But I was like, oh no, how much dead cap space do we have? But it's only a little over 2 million. So I was like, oh, for once, very minimum dead cap space. I was like, thank God.
Yeah, I'm like looking at the Giants roster here on good old over the cap. Uh, what they have for next year, and right now it says they only have like 43 million in cap space, which I thought that they had. I saw that they were going to have like 51, so I'm not sure where the differences are. But I'm looking to see like dead money and cap savings for each player, and I'm like, not worth cutting him, not worth cutting him. Oh, it could be worth cutting that guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Listen, the dead
like
cap
that, like,
space hit you're taking for Jones is gonna be it's gonna hurt for sure.
well, yeah, it's gonna hurt for this coming season, but not after that. After that they're free and clear. But like Devin Singletary would be a guy that you would on the surface think, well, he's a little redundant now. Tyrone Tracy emerged as, a fifth round draft pick and everything.
Yeah, he played
But
well, honestly.
yeah, but Singletary, you'd only save 250,000 by cutting him, and you'd have 6 million in dead money. So unless you can trade him to somebody, you're just better off just keeping him. You
Yeah,
know,
keep him as depth to the roster. To be honest
yeah,
with you, that's what I would do.
like guys like Cordell Flott, Daniel Bellinger, Micah McFadden, you'd save like 3.3 million each if you cut those guys. And have very little dead money, relatively speaking. But all those guys, to me, still have useful roles on the roster, so they're not guys you want to cut. There's really nobody I can see on the Giants roster who would be worthwhile cutting for cap reasons, um, because the savings aren't there or because they're still a useful part of the roster. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I guess that's actually a good place to be in, but there's really also nobody on their roster right now that I can say, oh, here's a hugely underperforming veteran with a big cap number who we'd really rather get rid of. There's nobody that really jumps out as being that either. So,
yeah. No, I get it.
but again, they have holes galore. So, but it's funny. You were also saying we're going back to the Ravens Steelers game. Talk about Henry having 100 yards at halftime. Oh, I'm going to age myself here. Back in 1986, I just remember this because of how many times I've watched this game on the old tape that we had. The Giants 49ers playoff game where the Giants won 49-3. There
Oh,
was a whole
jeez.
big thing about Bill Walsh had constructed a game plan for stopping the Giants offense where they were like, well, we'll let Joe Morris run for 100 yards on us, basically daring the Giants to have to throw the ball to beat them. And what was also a little bit strange about that was when they had played on Monday night about a month or so before the Giant in San Francisco, the Giants eked out a come from behind win. But in that game, Joe Morris very famously only ran for 14 yards on 13 carries.
Oh,
And this was
wow.
in a season where he had 1,500 yards for the season.
Oof.
And Parcells, in his great Parcellsian way,
Of
um,
course.
according to media reports, was calling his offensive lineman Club 14 all week leading up to the playoff game with the Niners.
Stupid.
So the Niners dared the Giants to beat them with the run, and they did. Morris had over 100 yards by halftime. Now, the main reason the Giants won that game was because the 49ers committed a shitload of turnovers, and Montana got knocked out of the game at the end of the first half when Jim Burt sent him into 1987 fully. I mean, the game was already played in 1987 because it was January, but um, you know,
He sent him back a couple weeks.
because that's the thing, the Giants won that game 49-3. They only had 366 yards of offense because one of their touchdowns was an interception return, and I think at least two of their other touchdowns were on short fields because of 49er turnovers. Sims threw 4 touchdowns in the game, but was only 9 of 19 for 136 yards for the whole game.
Hey, stats don't always match up.
Well, yeah,
100%.
but like I said, it was because, again, and imagine, it wasn't the same stadium, of course, but think of what the temperature and everything, the weather conditions were like when we were at WrestleMania in MetLife Stadium,
Yeah.
well, now 6 years ago. And that was in April, early
Yeah.
April. We're not talking early January. And the funny thing was, if you ever watched like the 1986 Giants playoff games, the weather in that game against the 49ers was practically blissful compared to the weather the following week in the conference championship game when they hosted the Redskins, because the wind was swirling all throughout that game. If you ever watched the game, you just see papers flying all across the screen for the entire game. It's like one of those things where it's like, it's not snowing or anything, but how are they playing this game?
It's one of those things. It's the weather, the way the stadium's set up, the way the wind blows. It's interesting. It's interesting how it all comes together.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, listen, sometimes stats don't match up to what the score is and all that jazz because of how the game played out. It's just
Yep.
interesting. Any given Sunday, man. Any given Sunday. So,
So,
so
hold on.
we look you have in your face.
Yeah, I've never heard of this site. It's like called DMV Wrestling News. Just published a story saying the Cauliflower Alley Club has reported that former WWE superstar Melina is currently unreachable due to the wildfire outbreak in Los Angeles. They have asked anyone with information about her whereabouts to come forward and encouraged others to share the message.
Oh shit.
I mean, hopefully this is just a situation where she's just somehow lost communication capabilities, like something happened with like her cell phone or something. And I mean, I do know there have been fatalities, of course, but I mean
Yeah.
that would be a very, very sad situation. I mean, it's obviously a very sad situation for everybody who's affected, but you know, homes can be rebuilt, lives cannot be reclaimed. So,
No, no,
um,
it
but
definitely can't be.
on slightly lighter news, I just wanted to throw this one out there real quick. So 3 years ago,
Oh yeah, it's on a whole bunch of sites, Pat, to be honest.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
that's what
sports.
just popped up on my feed.
Yes, Wrestling News has it. MSN has it. E-Wrestling News. Sportskeeda is actually has posted it now.
H side seats doesn't have it yet. I guess they're a little slow. Neither does WrestleZone. Not that I go to WrestleZone much anymore. Yeah, maybe they're just trying to get their own thing. Anyway, um,
Sad. Hope she's all right.
report Darby Allen taking time off from AEW. Oh Jesus! Then why did they throw him in the program with Moxley? Ugh.
Exactly.
Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. Uh,
Hmm.
so 3 years ago, Brian Kelly left Notre Dame for LSU, saying that he wanted to have the ability to win a national championship,
Yep. How'd that work out for you?
even if Notre Dame loses to Ohio State next Monday night. Oh, sweet, sweet irony. Notre Dame's in the national championship game. LSU has not made the playoff.
Nope.
And again, at the time, I totally understood why Kelly was doing it. And you could definitely make the argument he took Notre Dame as far as he could during his tenure there. And he saved it from the Charlie Weiss years and everything.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, Marcus Freeman's done fine as it's turned out. So
Yeah. He's been good. He's been good for them, honestly.
yeah, it's funny too about how quickly things can change. I mean, after the Northern Illinois game, um, the people were calling for his head.
It's
So
games like that happen. Um,
I mean, it's not really excusable or anything, but
no, it's not, but at the same
it was pretty
aspect,
obvious that was a letdown game after they had gone to College Station in week one, played a pretty physical game and outlasted Texas A&M, who was ranked pretty high at the time. I know they only finished like 8-4 or whatever.
still they
Um,
were ranked.
yeah, but you can definitely see where it could have been like a letdown game. Again, like I said, I no excuse for it, especially that Northern Illinois only ended up going like 7-5 for crying out loud. Um, but yeah, it was one of those things where um you gotta let things play out sometimes. It's like
We do. I mean, look
obviously losing
look where
at
they're
home
at
to
now.
Obviously losing at home to Northern Illinois, big red flag. It's like, well, let's wait to see how the next few weeks play out before we start going off with his head, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%.
Like
I got a little too jumpy at first.
there's a lot of people who are still upset with James Franklin after Penn State once again failed to beat a top five opponent because
Oh,
his record against top five ranked teams at Penn State is abysmal.
I I
But
didn't.
I don't know how much of that you can put on Franklin. Now, unfortunately, I did watch a lot of that game Thursday night on mute because for some reason Sean McDonough's voice lately, probably because of things that he said, has just made me want to, rip out his larynx. Um, so I had a lot of the game on mute, but there wasn't a lot of things that I saw that I could say, well, that was a bad coaching decision. There might have been stuff on the play calling again that I was missing because I wasn't like listening, and like so like my gaze, of course, because my two monitors wasn't always on the game because of it. So
Mhm.
one guy said, well, he could have gone for it on the fourth down with 3 minutes to go. And I'm like, on his own 32-yard line?
Yeah, no, no, no. Definitely.
I
Listen,
mean,
the unfortunate thing is like the quarterbacks only throw 9 interceptions in 2 seasons, and this 10th interception just so happens to happen at that time.
right. I'm
Like
like, if he
I
goes for it on that fourth down and they get stopped, it's almost the exact same situation as when Aller throws the interception later in the game after they got the ball back, which obviously that was a horrible throw. And Aller,
I
I think, is really the chief culprit. If you want to point the finger of blame at one person for Penn State losing, it's got to be at him.
yeah, I mean, I understood what he was trying to do, but at the same point, at that aspect, it's kind of like I think for the kids playing, they understand where the media's like, your coach hasn't done X, Y, and Z. Your coach hasn't been able to beat this team. So, like in their mind, we have a chance to go national championship. So he's trying to play superhero
Hmm.
ball, and it's hard to get the kids not to do stuff like that. But I understood what he was trying to do. I
Yeah.
saw what he saw, but he just didn't the throw wasn't good enough to make that completion. He threw it in the
No.
wrong spot. And at that point, it's kind of like you either try to you either take the sack or you just fucking throw the ball out of bounds and just let it be and punt the ball as deep as you can at that point and try to get it to overtime and go from there.
Well, see, that's the thing, and it just goes to show this is how hard football is. Because we're talking about this, very measured, very thoughtfully, deliberately over the
Because each
span of
team had timeouts left too. So
right.
that was the point where it's like,
Right. Well, what I'm saying is like, we're sitting here thoughtfully, deliberately over the span of several minutes talking about the decision he could have made. Um, he had to make that decision in a split second,
oh
you
yeah,
know. But it's like I do think at some point there has to be in your head, just acknowledging what the situation was in the game and everything, saying, if I throw this ball up, it could get intercepted, which could set up the other team to win this game. If I take the sack, well, then we'll sit on it and we'll go to overtime. I think you still have to just know before you snap the ball and before everything that you've got to have that thought in your head. Again, easier for me to say this now,
And
but
here's the thing, and that's where the
that's the
coaches
thing that I think you have to kind of remember what the game situation is. Don't risk a bad turnover as opposed to just taking a sack and saying, all right, well, we'll go to overtime.
and part of that is half of that's on the player and half of that's on the coach. Hey, we only have 30 some seconds left. You
Yeah,
don't see
where's
nothing?
the thing? Where's like the coach screaming in their head, take the sack versus throwing the ball up?
Yeah. It's like, listen, you don't see nothing, shit goes sideways, take the sack or throw it away. Like, don't you have to reinforce that to your player as well. So,
Yeah.
I know definitely a split second, neither one of us have ever been in that position. I get it. I understand it. But at the same point, that's where the coaching aspect comes into play. And listen, Franklin could have told him that, but yet at the same point, he's in that mode. He's like, oh, I see something, but it's really wasn't what he thought he saw. I know he's going to feel shitty for a long time for throwing that fucking pass.
Yeah, one of my Yankee friends who also roots for the Giants, like right after he it's not like we were like chatting back and forth while the game was on, but right after Aller threw that interception, he went, I no longer want Drew Aller to potentially be the quarterback of the Giants. I was like, oh, well, hopefully he's just going to go back to school and develop a little further because he definitely needs it. Like somebody on the Athletic a week or so ago published a mock draft where they speculated that despite Aller saying he was returning to school, would come out and had him going in like the top 10. And I'm like, I don't know if he would. And um, I don't know if he would. And if he did, I don't know that he would end up going that high. He could if teams get, and there are a few teams now that are definitely, uh, you know, quarterback needy. Beyond the teams that are picking in the top three. The Titans, the Browns, and the Giants. You've got the Jets, the Saints, and the Raiders, who all have obvious quarterback issues, who are picking in the top 10. So it's not
Yeah,
totally
I,
inconceivable, but.
I haven't. I don't know what the full draft class is going to be for the quarterback situation yet, but from
Well,
what
yeah, because I mean
it,
Milrose coming out, Dart's coming out. Carson Beck now is not.
yeah, speaking of that one, he's
Yeah, I was
taking
gonna
a
say
big,
we gotta talk about that for a little. I don't know what's going
fucking
on with
big
Quinn
payday.
Ewers yet. I don't remember if Ewers was a senior or not. So
Well, he's made mention that he's thinking about entering the draft, so I feel like he's probably going to.
I feel like in a way Ewers should go just so he doesn't have to worry about
Manning.
looking over his shoulder. So when I say go, that could mean portal if he's still eligible or the draft. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I think he's still eligible, but I think he's his time is to go into the draft. Well, I
yeah.
mean, who knows what he's going to do, but my
And the problem
speculation.
is, like, his play was so inconsistent this year too. It's like
Yes.
you wonder how high he's going to be drafted because that's the thing for a lot of these guys. I wonder just how high that some of them could be drafted because um the one giant blog that I follow, uh they use like I think it's Pro Football Network's mock draft simulator, and
Hmm.
they do it like oftentimes throughout the off season, as like free agency starts occurring and trades start getting made and everything. They did two mock drafts, one where they refused to make any trades, just let it play out as like with the picks as there were. And
Okay.
they did another one where they allow themselves to make trades and everything. Um, the one where they made trades, they actually did two trades. They traded back from 3 to 8 with the Panthers, where they picked up a couple other picks. I can't remember where. I'm not going to look it up. It's um, and the Panthers traded up to 3 to take Abdul Carter, which I found interesting. Then they also traded back again from 8 to 19 with, I want to say it was Houston, picked up like three other picks between this year and next year. And then 19, they had the Giants take Jalen Milrow. And it's like, I guess maybe conceivably I could see Milrow possibly start to go somewhere around there.
He's
Um,
definitely
I
not top
don't,
10.
yeah, I don't know the thing. That's the thing. I don't know what teams that are going to be picking around there would say we need to take Jalen Milrow. Milrow's still striking me more as an early second round pick. But depending upon how things start shaking out that first night of the draft, it wouldn't be surprising to see a team picking early in the second round, like say the Jets, Saints, Raiders, Giants, conceivably. Basically, whoever doesn't get Ward and Sanders decide that they have to trade back into the end of the first round with one of the playoff teams who doesn't have a quarterback need and take somebody like Milrow. I could see that happening.
Yeah, 100%.
I still kind of would have to say I hope that's not the Giants, and that's no disrespect to Jalen Milrow. It's just I don't think the Giants should be giving up draft capital right now.
I just,
I don't think they're in that position. One of the biggest things that was shown from them this year is that they need depth. So
even after Shador as the quarterback, which I still feel like he's from all the games I've watched of him at Jackson State to Colorado, there's still question marks in regards to his play. But after him, like I just don't feel that this is not a a high end quarterback class. So
it's not. I mean,
all these teams who need quarterbacks, listen, you might have to suck it up and look on the free agent wire. Be looking on who the quarterbacks in the free agency list is going to be to maybe supplement your team for another year before that next good quarterback class comes out. Because I
yeah,
just don't, I just after Shador, everyone else has a lot of them have positive things about them, but a lot of them have just as many negatives about them as well. There's
yeah.
no,
I mean, people have pretty much said Ward and Sanders would be ranked between McCarthy and Nix from last year's
yeah.
quarterback
Oh, I'm
class.
sorry, I forgot Ward too. My bad. Yeah, I think Ward's going to be good too. But he's got some he's got some flaws from what I see. But they all do coming out of college. But just not the just this last year's quarterback class. Sorry, I mean, listen, I know the Bears had a shit show as far as their coaching staff's concerned, but at the end of the day, Caleb still came out and had good numbers for the year. Jaden Daniels, people, he did good. Bo Nix did good. Like I didn't have, think Bo Nix was put in a situation where he doesn't have a lot of offensive weapons per se at his disposal, but he has a very good coaching staff at his disposal,
Yeah,
which is
he
going to
did.
help you.
He did a lot better than I thought he was going to because I want to know part of Bo Nix.
So he
And
was,
I saw him play at Oregon and Auburn, and I was like, yeah, I don't see it.
yeah, and he in a good position. Same with Daniels. Daniels doesn't have like a lot of explosive offensive weapons. He has good ones, but it's the coaching staff. Who else? Drake May. He did fairly well for the shit show that is what was, the Patriots.
Yeah,
Um,
let's see how he does now with presumably a new offensive coordinator.
yeah. Caleb Williams had,
The Josh McDaniels rumors are already flying there.
of course they are. Caleb Williams had a good offensive weapons, but we had poor coaching. And that's, you can have Jerry Rice on your fucking team. And as long as if you're coaching shit, that's not going to mean shit. So I still give kudos to him for doing the best he could for what he was given. But at the end of the day, this quarterback class, they had a good year. Like they really had a good season. They all played well. Given all their circumstances and what they were given, they all did good.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, it was I think it was a pretty on the overall, I think it was a pretty successful first year for
Yeah.
this year's quarterback class. So but like so the Giants blog that I was telling you about it's called Big Blue View. they were breaking down what are the options for the Giants at quarterback for next year. So they said rookie first round pick, which means Sanders or Ward, which again, you're not going to be able to get at number 3. They're going to have to trade up into the top 2. And I don't think either the teams picking I'm not sure that either the teams picking at 1 or 2 are going to want to trade out. So,
No,
all right.
no.
So there's that. Then there's Sam Darnold, which they would probably have to do a trade of some kind. Uh, JJ McCarthy, ditto. That's a whole big thing. What are the Vikings going to decide to do?
That's interesting. They're going to keep
Yeah,
Darnold and trade McCarthy or what? You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's and kudos to Darnold, man, because listen, he got drafted by the Jets. We know what that is. He went to a bad Carolina setup. We know
Mhm.
how that worked out. And now look, he's on a team that has a good coaching staff that has their shit together. And listen, there's games where he hasn't been great, but look where he put his team is right now. You know what I mean? Like he had a great year. Good coaching staff, quarterbacks, exceed expectations or play to the standards they're supposed to.
Yeah.
Bears, pay attention, assholes.
Yeah. And
Continue
then
on.
and then the veteran bridge option, which they throw out a bunch of names as to who that could be. Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, Jacoby Brissett, Marcus Mariota, Andy Dalton, Justin Fields, Jameis Winston, Joe Flacco, Jimmy Garoppolo, Carson Wentz, and a few others they mentioned. Now, before I go on to the last option, they say and a few others, but obviously very conspicuous by his name not being mentioned there is Aaron Rodgers.
I would say out of the free agent list, to be honest with you, and I'm the only one I would entertain would be Justin Fields, honestly.
I wouldn't be totally opposed to Winston.
The problem with Winston is he is he is pick happy.
Yeah,
That
I know.
man,
Yeah.
he
But
is
here's the same thing. Again, we're not expecting him to come in and lead them to the playoffs. It's like,
no, no. I mean, Winston would probably be my second option out of that free agent. All the rest
and
I would stay away from.
yeah, see, the problem is, and this goes to show you how what the consequences are of fucking up picking a quarterback early in the draft.
And I mean, yeah, it is a filler, so maybe not go with Justin as
Yeah,
the young guy.
no,
Give
no,
it to
no,
Winston.
no, yeah, no disrespect to Daniel Jones. I always felt like he was doing his very best. The problem is his best just wasn't good enough.
No,
But you fuck up picking, and again, he shouldn't have been picked that high. That's the other thing too. But again, this just goes to show you pick a quarterback high, it doesn't work. This is the result.
yep.
Your franchise goes into this like perpetual rebuild or limbo state. So, but anyway. Then he just mentions day 2 draft options, and he mentions Milrow, Aller if he declares, which I guess technically he could still do, even though he's already said he's coming back. Dart, Beck, this was before the Beck transfer news. Ewers if he declares, so okay, so Ewers could come back, and Dylan Gabriel of Oregon, of course.
Nah, I don't think
Yeah, I'm not really sold on any of those guys, to be honest.
no.
Dart. First of all, I don't like the name Jackson, spelled Jaxson, so that's just a big red flag. Uh,
Oh boy.
I don't care if the Giants did okay the last time. Well, I can't even say that. I was about to say the Giants did okay the last time they drafted a quarterback from Mississippi, and then I always have to remind myself, technically the Giants did not draft Eli Manning.
True.
So yeah. So again, it's just a whole bunch of question marks and everything. Now, speaking of Carson Beck, I
Yes.
find it savvy, I guess, might be the best way to term it, on his part that he decided to go to Miami because,
And that's the oddest that caught me off guard too. Like
well,
Miami.
here's what I was thinking would maybe played a part in his decision. Cam Ward was nobody at Washington State,
No.
quite frankly.
His
He
name
goes
was
to
out there.
Miami.
His
He
name
goes to Miami, and all of a sudden he becomes a Heisman Trophy candidate and possible first overall pick in the draft. Is Beck possibly thinking the coaching staff can do that for me too?
yeah, I get it. Yeah, he wasn't Ward was a name at Washington, but it wasn't. He got the superstar status. I'll just be very generic. He got the superstar status once he went to Miami. Because to be honest with you, when the transfer portal happened, that's who I wanted for Florida State. I didn't want the quarterback we got. I wanted Ward because I knew he had potential to be good, and he showed it at Miami. And they did a good job with him at Miami. So I get where Beck's coming from. Um, so it's what, $6 million in NIL money they're
Well,
giving
I
him?
heard four, and that's what I was going to get to. I was going to say, now, of course, I'm saying he's being savvy for going with Miami because they did a great job with Cam Ward. When we know the reason why he's going to Miami is because they threw all this NIL money at him. Now, again, we're never going to know for sure what it is. It's just going to be reports, stories, and God only knows where that information comes from. 4 million, 6 million. All I can say about that though is this. If that's true that he's going to get paid $4 or $6 million next year while he's ostensibly attending classes at the University of Miami and playing football.
So it's 4 million.
Yeah. Again, I'm all for these guys getting paid, mostly off of the grounds of how much money the colleges get paid in the television contracts and everything else. So what the colleges make off of what these kids do. But holy shit, that's out of control.
And this is how the NIL and the transfer portal, and it's the NIL along with the transfer portal. Yeah,
Yeah, but
it's
this just goes to
changing the
show
game,
they
dude.
gotta figure out a way to rein some of this in and regulate this a little bit better. And that's the problem. I don't know that they're going to be able to, because I think this is one of those things where it's like Dr. Frankenstein already let the monster escape. You can't stop him attacking the village at this point.
I guess it says that this is on Bleacher Report, per Spot Track, the number 18th overall pick in the 2025 draft will average just under 4.1 million annually from his rookie contract. And that's likely well ahead of where Beck would have been picked. If he had
Yeah.
dropped to the second round, the highest average salary could have earned 2.7 million. So at the end of the day, Beck wasn't going to be revered as a number one draft pick. He was definitely more like a mid to late second round pick,
Yeah.
right? So he's making bank coming back to
Hmm.
betting on himself. He's gonna take the money, bet on himself, go to a program that helped Cam Ward, and see where it takes
Yeah,
him next year.
he's saying I'm gonna get paid more than I would have if I was in the NFL.
And that's insane.
This will give me protection for myself if I get injured or don't play better or whatever. And so if I never make it in the NFL, I'll have this money. Now, I just hope to God, because you could also make the argument $4 million isn't a lot of money anymore. And I'm like, well, that's still X times what I make in a year.
Yeah, and you got to think
Now,
about taxes in the state he lives in. So yeah, it's not going to be
yeah,
truly 4 million. It's
like,
going to be
yeah,
less.
I hope he
But
gets hooked up with a pretty good, financial planner who can just like manage the money for him. So it's like, you know, well, so I can like, live decently and everything. It's like, don't go out and buy like 8 houses and 17 cars though, dumbass. Um,
oh yeah,
but make it so that, I'll have some security if things don't go right for me. I mean, obviously he's still gonna have to do something if he never makes it in the NFL, but just make it so that I'm protected in some way. So that's what he needs to
he
make
might be
sure.
a graduate transfer at this point too.
Well, I think he is. You know,
So
wonder what kind of graduate classes these guys take, because I always remember the thing like when Matt Leinart came back for his senior year, he already actually had like almost every credit he needed to graduate. And there was the whole thing about like the only class he was taking was ballroom dancing or something like that.
just electives. I mean, really, if you've
Right,
already
but
have
it's like,
enough.
but dude, it's like if he's earned all the other credits, if he's earned all the other credits already, so what if that's the only class he's taking? It's not,
Yeah,
you
it's not
can't
his
say,
fault.
oh, he's not challenging himself. It's like, well, he obviously already has, because he's, got all the credits ahead of time.
Yeah, if you can't get all your credits before the 4 years and you're graduating before the 4 years is up, kudos to you because you did your job. You know what I mean? So if he's taking ballroom dancing to keep playing or taking flute playing, I don't give a shit what classes he's taking. It doesn't make a difference at all. Yeah, it's and the other thing too. I know we mentioned this before, um, but they really need to they really need to change the data of the transfer portal when kids are allowed to. Like, if you're not, if your team is not going to a bowl game, you're allowed to enter the transfer portal. If your team's in a bowl game, you're not allowed to enter the transfer portal until X day. Or
Yeah,
they need to make some type of adjustment because you can't be opening that shit up and have these teams going into bowl games and losing players. Like Illinois, I think Illinois had one or two kids that maybe entered the transfer portal that technically should have played in the bowl game, but I don't think it really made a difference. Our top wide receiver didn't play, but that's because he declared for the draft. So, I get it. Patrick Bryant had a great year for himself. So I understood why he didn't play in the bowl game. So it's fine. Um, but as far as like if unless you're declaring for the draft, they need to readjust when this whole transfer portal shit happens because you're just screwing up bowl games and things of
yeah,
that nature.
yeah, Bo Prabula, the Penn State backup quarterback, who still played a good amount of time because they would use him on like Wildcat packages
Oh,
and other stuff. Yeah, he transferred for Penn State, played SMU. Uh, and it was
and you know what? You know
because he
what
felt that
makes
that was the best thing for him, and he said, "This is the time that in which I have to do it." And Franklin even said, "Yeah, I understand why he's doing it, and I can't blame him." And he wasn't talking bad about him or anything like that. Um, and but it's like if he wanted to do it, this is when he had to do it and everything. So that's what happened, and he's going to Missouri now, I think.
I just
Um,
I just feel like even for that situation, like I guess I get it, but then the flip side, I don't because it's like you're willing to transfer out of a school when you're in the playoffs. You have a chance. Listen, I know you might not be the starting quarterback and you might get little, you know, play here or play there for whatever they scheme up for you, but you have a chance of being a national championship team. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I feel like the luster of that has gone away for some of these kids, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I think that what it was is that I think Aller had pretty much already indicated he was coming back next year. So Prabula said, "I'm going to be in the same situation. I'm just going to play like when they call the plays for me, which is going to be what, maybe like 10 times per game, if that."
Yeah.
Meanwhile, my eligibility is running out and everything. So again, I can't blame him for his decision, but yeah, it's the timing of it that sucks. It's like if he didn't have to, like if he had still, I'm not saying that Penn State would have beaten Notre Dame if they had him. That's a far stretch, I think, but I'm sure Penn State would have preferred that throughout these three games against SMU, Boise State, and Notre Dame, that they had just had him,
Hmm.
and had that option and everything. So, um, yeah, it's really unfortunate that this is what it is. And then because, this is why I feel like they probably will make a change too. For all these teams that have been in the playoff, what work have they been able to do in the portal? You know?
None.
Yeah. So like I don't know who the hell's going to be Notre Dame's quarterback next year. I think they have a pretty decent recruit who might get first crack at it. I can't remember his name now because I don't think it's going to be Angeli who came in during the Penn State game.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha.
Um, but uh, it's like let's say if because there's so many quarterbacks who are in the transfer portal. Let's say if Notre Dame conceivably wanted to maybe entertain trying to get one of them, did they have the opportunity to? And obviously the same goes for Ohio State and the same goes for Penn State and Texas, and the teams that got eliminated last week. So,
100%.
um, you know, let me
100%.
see here if I type in Notre Dame quarterback 2025, if I get the right guy, because Leonard, I'm pretty sure his eligibility is up. Um,
And I'm still not putting it, I'm still not gonna say that Ohio State's gonna have an easy game against Notre Dame. That's for sure. I think the game might be more competitive that people are gonna put it off to.
Well, yeah, they got this guy Blake Abear who they flipped from Clemson, who's coming in this year. But they got other guys who there's like Angeli, Kenny Minchie. He's on the CJ Carr. That's the guy I remember. I don't remember if he was considered a four-star recruit, but he suffered an elbow injury too. He's also, I believe, the grandson of former Michigan head coach Lloyd Carr.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's going to be really hard for my mother if he's potentially Notre Dame's quarterback because they root for Notre Dame after Penn State, but she fucking hates Lloyd Carr. She always calls him Loser Lloyd. She still remembers that Penn State Michigan game from 2006 where she was like, Carr was whining to the officials. They put more time on the clock, and then Michigan won the game on a play that was snapped with 1 second left, and
Well, make
everything.
sure you do your research and make sure he's not, or if he is, and just never tell your mother.
Well, no, she knows about him. Like she's probably forgotten by now, but I know she remembered hearing about him at the time. So like, if it comes to the fact that he starts playing again, and if she's ever watching a game, they'll certainly bring up his connection to Lloyd Carr. So she'll have to go,
They will.
God damn it, that guy!
They probably will. All
Hey,
right.
here's some switching subjects. Here's some interesting news. I guess I'm slightly surprised that they're doing this, but at the same time, it's totally understandable as to why they are, and I think it's necessary. So they are doing a second season of Ahsoka.
Oh, they are now?
Yeah. Um, they are recasting Baylan Skoll.
Okay. Because I heard that they were, then I heard that they weren't. And I'm like, why would you leave Ahsoka's first season like on that thing? There should be a second. I kept hearing back and forth. So
Yeah,
interesting. Okay,
because
so they're gonna do it. They
yeah,
should.
because
Can't leave them stranded in another universe.
you can't. I mean, it's bad enough that we're not going to see any more of the Acolyte to see where because there was stuff obviously left hanging there.
That
You know,
so fucking pisses me off.
the Darth Plagueis tease, obviously, but
Unless
um,
they're able to put that in something else.
yeah,
Maybe they bring him to Ahsoka in some manner. I
I
don't
don't know.
care.
Yeah, but there's still so much stuff about how do you get from Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens, you know?
Yep.
And I know there's been some books which are considered part of the new canon, as it were. Um, but there's still got to be a better reason. And obviously, like with Thrawn returning with this zombie army, you
Yeah.
could potentially see reasons why, like just because it would create instability within the Republic, and then you can have like, and we've seen the teases in like the Mandalorian, um, like in the third season there with Gideon talking to all those people in the hologram, including one guy who was supposed to be Paleon, who, in the Legends canon was Thrawn's second in command and everything, and then was around much longer afterward and stuff. Um, and there was also like the guy supposed to be like Hux's father. So it's like there's little seeds here and there and everything. So it's like, yeah, I'm
You need
glad
to
they're
tie it all
continuing on.
together.
Yeah. So I don't know if they're ever going to take us to an exact point, like they're certainly never going to show us, I think, the stuff between Luke Skywalker and Ben Solo. I don't think we're ever going to get that, because
I
probably
think we'll
nobody's going to want to see anybody else play Luke Skywalker. And obviously Mark Hamill's too old now, but
I think we're only gonna see that if it's gonna be a novel form, really.
yeah, like I don't think we'll see that stuff. I think they're going to get to a certain point with the live action. Maybe it'll be when they do like the Mandalorian movie or whatever, where it's just like, all right, that's our endpoint for this.
I feel like they're gonna do tie-ins and finish stories because
Yeah,
that's gonna be that movie's gonna be the finale of tying that into the Force Awakens to
yeah.
usher
But
that in.
there's so much limbo now because like the Ray movie keeps getting delayed. They're like looking for another writer for like the fourth time or something.
I
So
know.
it's kind of depressing. But anyway, so Rory McCann, probably best known to people as the Hound from Game of Thrones, will apparently take over the role of Balin Skull in the second season of Ahsoka.
Okay.
From a physical stature, yeah, you can definitely see it.
Yeah.
Um, it's a shame, of course, because Ray Stevenson was just so good as that character.
He was.
You know, he I think is a little bit more serious faced than Rory McCann. And I'm not saying Rory McCann isn't, but Rory McCann's face is a little droopier, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I understand what you're
Um,
saying with that.
but Greg Rory McCann, he's been in a lot of stuff. He was in he was like the villain in the second Jumanji well, not the second Jumanji movie technically, but the second Jumanji movie with
The
The
remake.
Rock and Kevin Hart.
Yeah, the remake version.
Yeah, he was in Gladiator too. I don't remember who the hell he played then. I guess he was in the Knuckles series that was on Paramount Plus, which I haven't watched.
Oh, I watched like 2 episodes of that. It's pretty fun. I just
Yeah.
haven't finished watching it.
And he voiced Megatron in Transformers Earthspark, which again, to me, there's only one Transformers cartoon, so
Understood. Understood with that.
and there's only one voice of Megatron, and it sounds like this kind of sort of. I still function. Starscream. Anyway, so I'll be interested to see that. Obviously, like you said, we can't talk about Skeleton Crew because you need to watch the most recent episode, and there's only one episode left.
I know. I know. I got sick and I forgot about it. I'll watch it
Yeah,
today.
I get that. I don't know if I'll have a chance to watch it on Tuesday either because, well, maybe it depends. I mean, like I'll be out on Trivia Tuesday night, but I'll probably get home before it airs. But I don't
I'll
know.
watch this past Tuesdays today, later today, but
Yeah,
I'll actually be able to watch Tuesdays.
I gotta put my head in a bit of a different mindset Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. So I don't know if I should really waste time with watching that Tuesday night. It's like I can avoid spoilers easily enough, so I can wait till like Wednesday when I get home to watch it. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah, understood.
Yeah. So the world of wrestling.
Yeah, let's wrap this show up with some wrestling, I guess.
Let me just say this first of all. I want to talk about AEW first. I don't think we've been on since AEW ran their last pay-per-view of the year there at the end of December.
World's End. Yeah.
Yeah. Which of course saw the return of Edge. I mean Adam Copeland. I mean
Cope.
Cope.
Listen, whatever. Nicknames. It's fine. I'm not gonna pick on them.
I remember an SNL sketch in the early 90s when Jerry Seinfeld hosted, where it was like a game show for like stand-up comedians. And Adam Sandler was one of the contestants, and he like repeatedly kept using the line, "Who were the ad geniuses that came up with this one?" Why do you think Cope sounds good?
In capital letters too.
Edge sounded kind of cool, as like a one-syllable name. I know Cope is obviously the first syllable of his last name, but what was wrong with just calling himself Adam Copeland? I don't.
Yeah,
Everybody knows who he is
I know.
and knows that he can't use that name, but they can print it on a T-shirt.
That's the only reason why.
Legend. When I saw that the other night, I was like, it's like I almost hope WWE sues them for that. But
I don't think they can, but who knows?
I don't think they can either. But at the same time, it's like I don't think it would be totally unreasonable to say WWE should sue for that.
Oh,
But anyway, but the one thing I really wanted to talk about with AEW is so they had that gauntlet match, and I think that match is I still don't fully understand what the point what the rules are, but whatever. But anyway, I was definitely genuinely shocked when I was watching that on Wednesday night that they had Powerhouse Hobbs win. And I actually am in favor of that because I think Powerhouse Hobbs is a guy who still has a lot of untapped potential.
so do I.
And apparently they did a spot on Collision last night where he kind of stood tall over Moxley at the end, or he basically ran Moxley off. And all of a sudden Moxley's being a coward after they all was like, we're gonna destroy you, we're gonna kill you, I'm gonna put plastic bags over your head, I'm gonna pour drain cleaner down your throat. And all of a sudden he's running away. So it's
But
like great, once again, great booking, Tony. But as much as I'm glad that they're doing something like this with Hobbs, there's practically no chance he's going to win on Wednesday. And so after that,
I know.
he's just going to be there again, like pretty much almost everybody on the roster, because this guy doesn't know how to book. He doesn't know how to build people.
It was so weird, in like the heel aspect of Moxley going from being like a badass to now he's that Jericho heel where he's like trying to run, being like uh the pansy heel per se, or whatever the terminology I'm looking for. I
Chicken
apologize.
shit heel.
Yeah, that's the word. So it is very
You don't want the guy from trying to act like Brock Lesnar and that he's a killer and everything to acting like he's the model Rick Martel.
yeah, 100%, 100%. So I find that very interesting in regards to that. I've been reading more um, about the results from AEW, and most of the shows I haven't been. I mean, of course, I watched Raw like we all did because it was on Netflix. SmackDown, I've catch parts here and there when I'm able to, just reading results. AEW, I've seen some matches here and there, just reading results as well. I'm for the Hobbs part because they need something. I feel like they've sad to say, like I don't have a huge issue with Darby, but they just kind of throwing Darby at us, and I feel like they're not pushing others to be in Darby's spot to be against these Death Riders or whatever storyline. And to be honest with you, I still know what the fuck they're doing. It's like I've lost interest in it. It's like a lot of people don't care about it because they've dragged it on for so long. What's the end game with this? Like they're not progressing the story in a manner where we're seeing any type of end game or any true challenge from AEW, the AEW side per se. You're just putting people against Death Riders that really have no, I don't want to say relevance, but no mm, potential of really dethroning or taking down the Death Riders. And yeah, you have Cope with FTR. That's going to be That's and since you brought up Hobbs, is Hobbs going to win? No. Hobbs is going to lose, and then what's going to happen? They're going to throw Cope with FTR in there, and that's going to be is that the end game? Are those three going to take down the Death Riders and John Moxley? So it's like you're just putting Hobbs in there as a temporary person that's just a filler until they go with the storyline of Copeland and FTR against the Death Riders.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't.
Well, this is the thing. It's as usual with AEW. It's hard to
Mm,
see where they're going with something because I'm going to say this, they don't know where they're going with it.
no. And then
They don't book with any kind of long-term ideas. They book on the seat of their pants. We saw how well that worked for WCW their last few years.
yeah, Vince Russo. Yeah, good job.
And it's also once again a case of how many people on that show are more or less booking their own shit. I bet you there's at least five. Moxley, Mercedes, Edge, probably,
Mm,
um, Jericho,
yeah.
and shit. Who's the fifth? I
Mm,
wouldn't say MJF. I wouldn't say Osprey. I wouldn't say Okada. I wouldn't even say Kenny. I would obviously say the Bucks, but they're off TV right now. Damn, there's somebody else, and now I can't remember who I was thinking of. So, but even so,
I think
that's too many people to be doing that. Again, the guy who's booking is the guy who's supposed to be saying what goes. Now, again, seeking out, we've gone over this before, but seeking out input from guys and everything is fine. But at some point, a booker has to be able to say, that idea is shit. We're not doing it.
Yeah, and
You can go,
supposedly,
you can go pout in the corner, but sorry, I'm the fucking boss. I'm the one that has the father that's paying your salary.
I mean, supposedly they have like their booking team, but I don't know. I just still feel like
Yeah,
some of them.
any times I've heard
He
like supposedly who might be on their booking team, I just always like kind of roll my eyes and go, that's not exactly a crack team of
Christian, was that the other one you were thinking of?
no, because but now that you mention it, I guess he could fit in there because this patriarchy shit has gone way past the point of being a piece of moldy bread too. So
And I think you see more of it with the former WWE guys in
oh yeah,
aspects
definitely.
than
Because I think Tony's like, well, you've been somebody, you've been a star, and it's like, yeah, that's great and all, but on the other hand, then you've got the elite guys, and I will throw them all in a group here now, who of let's just say like the five elite guys. Um, the Bucks have been legends in their own minds. They've never drawn serious money in a serious wrestling promotion. Basically, same with Kenny. I mean, strong in Japan is fine, but Japanese wrestling, I think, is pretty down right now. Um, Jack Perry's a nobody, and Okada is broken down. I don't care what anybody wants to say, defend him. He is broken down. It is obvious.
I don't think he's broken down yet.
I think he goes out. Look, and again, I don't blame him for doing this either. But I think he's just a shell of what he used to be because he can't do everything that he used to be able to do. And I get that. He's a little older. He's done all those things. So his body's probably just breaking down and he's trying to preserve it. That's really admirable in a way. The problem is it doesn't lend to somebody who never saw him before thinking that he's anything that special. I
I
mean,
think
the fact that his finisher too, and finishers are, we've gone over this before about finishers. The fact that his finisher is what Jake the Snake used to set up the DDT is kind of hysterical to me. That'd be like
listen,
if somebody busted out the atomic leg drop as a finisher again.
it's just one of those things where you have it's when you wrestle in New Japan, you definitely put your body through hell and inside in those types of matches, and he's done plenty of that. And yes, he is on
And
the older
for
side.
what you could argue.
Yeah, I mean that's just Japan's style of wrestling. I think for me, I think Okada still has a lot left. I just think for him,
I mean, I hope he does
he's
too. I'm just really kind of not seeing it.
I just think for him, it's going to be, and kudos to him for doing this because I think still, and listen, AEW is a different product where they're more wrestler and driven first, and storyline driven second. So it's where a lot of these guys want to put on these great matches on all the shows. Where Okada has like done that repeatedly in New Japan, and now over here, he's gonna put on good matches, but he's not going to go all out unless it's on a pay-per-view or depending on who he's wrestling and his connection and is with that specific wrestler. I think you'll see a good old school Kenny and Okada match from New Japan on an AEW pay-per-view sometime this year. But I think he definitely needs to, he's at the point where he's pacing himself because he knows he's older. Like he's being smart about it, which I commend him on. But the same aspect, I brought this up before. I've not been a huge fan of how he's been booked in AEW. You know, some of the funniness. If he wanted to, be funny at times and they let him kind of have his role with that, that's fine. The bitch thing to me sometimes is okay, sometimes not. It depends on when it's being used. Um, but it's hard for me because I've seen so many. I've watched Okada for so long. It's hard for me to see where he is right now. Now his matches have been better recently than they were when he first got there. So I will say that. But just it's more or less a see where he goes with Okada and what type of matches he's gonna continue to have. Because the pay-per-view in the matches he had at pay-per-view were good. Um, in regards to that. I'm not going to sit here and be like throw around the 5-star match talk because I think that's getting a little bit redundant and ridiculous with the 5-star stuff because honestly, we just had two big wrestling events in New Japan. I watched both of them, both good, both good events. Wrestle Dynasty and Wrestle Kingdom was first, and then Wrestle Dynasty. So both events were really good. I gave one an A and one an A minus of overall show. I don't agree with Meltzer and his ratings for a bunch of the matches, which is fine because he goes above and beyond when it comes to match ratings anymore. So it's hard for me to like when he gives somebody a 5-star match, it's kind of like whatever, because you'll give that person a 5-star match and US soil, but you give them a 5 and a 3/4, and if it's in fucking Tokyo, it's just I'm not gonna rate it on that really anymore. 5 stars, I really don't care. I don't want to say I don't care, but it's become less relevant for me if I could talk
Yeah.
about the whole 5-star stuff. Like, yeah, this is a spectacular match. You want to grade it a 5-star, great. I might give it a 4 3/4 because of X, Y, and Z. I'm not gonna be too nitpicky, but every style is a little bit different too. I'm gonna rate
Yeah.
it based on the style of the match and whatnot.
Yeah. I
But
mean, it's funny too, because I'll still look at like Meltzer's old star ratings just like a guide. Like last night, I tortured myself by watching WCW Uncensored 2000, which was a pretty bad show. But surprisingly, there was only like two matches that I think he rated over 2 stars. And one of them was the Hogan Flair strap match, the infamous Yapapai Indian strap match. The guy who does the Reliving the War show on YouTube, he thought the match was shit. And to be honest, I think it was somewhere in between shit and 2.5 stars. Um, but like, so I also like refer back to those as like just like as kind of a general guideline. But I also think that even back then, Dave could be sometimes very inconsistent. Like like why is that match a dud versus that match having negative stars? We've again talked about that, I'm sure. Like,
he's just
I think we
weird.
figured out that dud basically means 0 stars, but it's like
Yeah,
we'll just say 0 stars then. Don't say dud, especially if you're going to go into fucking negative territory.
yeah. That's I mean, and that's where it gets to be too over the top. I
Yeah,
just
but
he just
they talked about like how
he
many
can't be
5 star matches.
biased. He just can't be biased
Yeah,
anymore. I'm
they
sorry.
talked about how many 5 star matches Osprey had this year alone.
Yeah. And it's probably what,
And I think it was more
6?
five. I think it was more 5 star matches than Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels ever had combined. Maybe.
Yeah, I think what he's had maybe like what 5, 6 5-star matches per day that he's had this year. I've seen some of
Well,
them.
Osprey?
Yeah.
No, I think they said the Osprey's had 16 5 star rated matches, or five or
This
better.
year?
Yeah, I think that's what they said.
Really? Okay. I'd have to okay. I'd have
And
to
he was gushing about how the Osprey Fletcher match was possibly the best opening match in a pay-per-view ever. And it's like that's something that has to marinate. You can't say that knee jerk the week after it happened.
have to go
Because
back and
because
watch
here's
that
another
match
thing
again.
too. How many people still talk about the Bret Hart Owen Hart match from WrestleMania 10?
Not too many.
No, a lot do.
I don't hear it a lot.
I
That's
I see a lot of people still talk about the Bret Owen match from WrestleMania 10, and that was the opening match. And again,
that was a great match.
we're 31 years later now.
Yeah, that was a great
In
match.
31 weeks, how many people are going to be talking about that Osprey Fletcher match? And he's trying to say it's the best opening match ever.
And here's the thing with that too. When I understand Ospreay is a very phenomenal wrestler, I get it, and he wants to put on a great match every time, and that's fine. And here's where it gets to be a bit much. Out of all of his 5-star matches, which ones are going to be memorable? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
In regards to like you're reading every, and like yes, if they're valid to be 5-star matches, fine. But when you're in that platform, like where are we ranking your 5-star matches? Which ones are the memorable ones? It's there's that fine line of 5-star, memorable 5-star, just another random 5-star match that you're putting on, or is this a memorable 5-star match? Like where you draw the line of the difference? If that makes sense. Maybe in my head it does. Maybe for you guys it doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, the other problem really is it's kind of like what you said. I'm not saying he doesn't have 5-star matches, but yeah, how do you start differentiating from them?
Yeah,
And of course, they will say, "Well, that's why I gave it 5.25. That's why I went to 6. That's why." But then, what's the point of your rating system?
exactly.
You can't keep breaking your rating system because then it just becomes just ridiculous on a level that has not been defined by science yet. So I just
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, I
like I'm
mean,
like and to Osprey too is like he wants to put out a great match every time, and this is something that I've criticized AEW before, and I will continue to do it. There's a difference between TV matches and pay-per-view matches. Pay-per-view matches, and the thing of it is that it seems like when I read the descriptions, because obviously I don't watch their pay-per-views, but it seems like when I watch the descriptions or read the descriptions of their pay-per-view matches, I'm not sensing a whole lot that's different than what they show on Dynamite every week.
mm, depending on who's wrestling, not
I mean,
really
it's
per
like
se.
it just sounds like they're just doing like all the same stuff. They're just doing it for longer,
I
so
would say 70% correct
yeah.
for most matches.
But it's like, TV matches are supposed to, again, and I know it's different in streaming and everything, but not if you're still selling the stuff on pay-per-view. And obviously, they're not going to be live streaming their pay-per-views on Max the way that the pay-per-views are shown on WWE Network on Peacock, for WWE. Um, so you still got to get people to buy the show,
Yeah.
and you don't get them to buy the show by showing the same stuff on free TV that you show on pay TV, because eventually they'll say, "Oh, I can see everything that you're doing now when I watch on the show that's on cable every week, so I don't need to buy your show anymore."
I think the biggest thing too is like
And they
a,
notice that
a
they never give you pay-per-view buy rate numbers. So
I know. I think the biggest thing too is like AEW really truly is an alternative. It's never going to be for as I think it's one of those things where WWE's been around so long and we're so used to how they do things and they've changed and evolved as well. Um, and we are used to seeing like how WCW was and they changed and evolved as well, good and bad. But AEW doesn't want to be the same type of setup or cookie cutter as WWE, which I get. They want to be the true alternative like ECW was, but in a different manner. Yes, the wrestling, they're more concerned about the in-ring product and the wrestling matches. Storylines are second, like we said before. They just, and they have a fan base for it. And there's a lot of people out there that do prefer, the matches and, how the wrestling matches go because the indie scene was a boom at one point and all the other TNA was high for a while and all the other stuff that came in, Lucha Underground on TV and the type of matches they were putting on, which were crazy. And I know I sent you some of that stuff with the male and female matches. Um, but that kind of introduced more to the indie type of wrestling where it was very match driven and storyline second. And they're just going with that flow. At the end of the day, I don't think I think at some point AEW will start having a balance between matches and storyline, but it's not going to be anytime soon. It might be 2 years from now, it might be 4 years from now. It might be at a point where if they don't start trending that way, they'll see it more in their ratings. And I know people don't want to talk about ratings or don't care about ratings. At the end of the day, your ratings is what matters. Ratings have mattered since the fucking 80s. It's the nature of the beast. If your ratings aren't doing good, then forget about it. You better figure out how to change your product to make the ratings go back up. Doesn't matter what type of fucking TV show you're putting on, what type of sports entertainment show what you're putting on, what type of sporting event you have, what sports league it is. It's all about the ratings. People like it, they're gonna watch it. Yes, AEW has a pretty strong fan base, and they're going to keep representing every Wednesday and Saturday. They're going to watch. I'm curious to see what the ratings are on the streaming service, like what's going on and like who's watching it live and then who's like reap. I mean, the streaming is kind of good. Jeremy can catch up and start watching AEW now. You know what I mean? And go
Yeah.
back and watch some shows. It's good for people like that who at Max will be able to do it. And maybe they'll, when they have pay-per-views, you have to buy it, but then they'll put the pay-per-view on there and you can watch previous pay-per-views and go back and start watching pay-per-views and catching up on those too. So that'll be a good aspect for them. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, they're in the right direction, but they still have a ways to go to get to a more prominent force in the industry than what they are. They could be better than what they are right now. It's just they're not. It's it's still they're still a puppy company. They're still a young pup, still learning their ways, no matter if you got veterans running that in the back to newbies, it is what it is. At some point they're going to have to, I think there's going to be a time where they're going to have to reinvent the product a little bit. Just like WWE with all their Attitude Era, Aggression Era, PG era, they're going to have to go through that as well. I mean, TNA's gone through multiple versions of that since their existence. It's just the nature of the beast. CMLL's done it. AAA has gone through stuff like that. So New Japan as well. They all go through it. They just haven't hit their specific cycle yet. So it is frustrating, certain things, because you're so used to what you've seen for so long. I just kind of accepted to the point where they're more match driven and storyline driven. But, just hoping to watch good wrestling and hoping for when they figure out how to take that next step, then how they're going to go about doing it. To be honest,
Yeah. I mean,
it was I do love the fact that Ricochet is being booed and they're running with the heel part with him, and I did love the fact that during the pay-per-view, uh, Prince Nana and Swerve came out and was throwing toilet paper out to the crowd and try making fun of Ricochet. I thought that was hilarious.
well, there was one thing about that though that Cornette and Last mentioned, which I tended to agree with. It's not that doing that was bad, but the crowd did it first.
Yeah, of course.
The crowd did it first spontaneously, and then they're like, okay, let's do that too. You
Well,
know?
I get that, but it's better than not doing anything.
Yeah.
It's better than not capitalizing on it too. And that's
I
the other
mean,
aspect. If
yeah,
they didn't capitalize on it, then it's like you missed it there, people. You missed it.
yeah. I mean, I'm fine with them doing shit like that to Ricochet. I mean, this guy suppose I guess is revealing himself to be like an Andrew Tate fan. And it's like, okay, so fuck you too, then.
Oh, I didn't hear
Um,
about that stuff.
yeah, I mean, he kind of looks like Andrew Tate. I almost wonder if they shouldn't have just like, give him an Andrew Tate type of gimmick, so long as the people boo him. Because
No,
if they
don't do
start
that.
cheering for him doing a gimmick like that, then you gotta fucking,
Yeah,
get rid of
no,
that in an instant. But um, yeah. So I don't know. AEW is just it's to me it's the same as it ever was. Again, I think last on Cornette show mentioned since it's been on Max, he's gone back and he's watched some of the early stuff and he's like, it's amazing the crowd reaction, how different it is.
it is.
The crowd was into this stuff then, and how they're so silent now. And I know the pandemic changed a lot of shit, but I'm not sure he was necessarily just talking about pre-pandemic shows. He also mentioned something else which I found interesting. I don't know about this myself. Let me just see. All right, so if I go to Max right now, all right, so the first thing is this Aaron Hernandez documentary. The page through the front of things, other like Max original shows, a couple of movies, and blah blah blah. Okay, scroll down the recommended for you. Yeah, okay, yeah, blah blah. All right, there's this. Okay, oh, top 10 series today. Brand Spotlight. Oh, we got HBO Max Originals, DC, TCM, ID, Adult Swim. Scroll through that. Boomerang, TLC, Discovery, CNN Max. A few other things. Oh, there's Harry Potter, ONW, Travel Channel, Sesame Workshop. Oh, live and upcoming. Okay. Top 10 movies today. All right, yeah. Popular TV. Oh, Friends, Big Bang Theory, South Park, Game of Thrones, Vampire Diaries. Just added. Oh, there's AEW.
Yes.
They aren't even pushing it on their fucking streaming service. You really have to go looking for it. You're not going to stumble upon it.
Yeah, and that's the part too. I did notice that when I was on there. I was like, yeah, you um just that's bad. Like if you're gonna put it, you want to put it somewhere on the front right when you log in.
Yeah, it's oh, and right now apparently, huh? They don't have everything apparently either. Because when I click on AEW here, I got the fight for the Fallen from the first and the Collision from the fourth. They don't have the other stuff from this past week up on there yet. But then I click on like the season thing. All right, there's 2024, and it doesn't even look like all of 2024. Looks like it only goes back as far as October. And then there's season 2019. It looks like we've got from the start here, which was in October, and then, through the end of the year. But I'm not seeing 2020, 21, 22, and 23. I'm really confused now about what they actually have available here.
Yeah, I know they're take some time to put some of that stuff on there.
Now they've got 2019 pay-per-views, but just 2019 pay-per-views apparently.
It'd be interesting to go back and watch some of them.
So this is a little strange. I don't know, but they
It's a
need to promote
process.
that. They need to promote that a little better. Okay, so all right, enough about AEW. Let's go to Raw real quick.
Let's finish the show with talking about Raw.
Yeah.
Yes.
So first of all, I'm sure you've talked to our dear friend AJ about this. I have. I would tend to agree with him that it was not a great show.
He used the word corporate show, and I agree with him.
It very much was. I'm not real surprised that that's what happened, and
Neither
I
am I.
can't imagine that that's the way it's going to be going forward.
It better not be
But
tomorrow night.
but my God, that was a hard show to sit through.
Yes, it was.
So they really need to tighten it up. Now, obviously, on next week's show, we're not going to have The Rock out there talking about nothing in particular. We're not going to have Cena out there
Saying the same shit.
cutting, a 10-minute long promo. We're not going to have the other thing that we're going to talk about in a second.
The Undertaker, and then the
No,
other
that's
thing.
not what I was getting at.
But
Because
we won't have that
his
either.
thing barely took any time, and
I,
all
I,
it really did was just steal some of Rhea's thunder unnecessarily. But
well, and I don't think Rhea cared, to be honest with you.
we're not going to have the part with them showing all the superstars who might as well have been wearing signs saying not appearing on this show
I know.
around their necks, and all the pointless celebrities that they showed. And I'm sorry, no offense to those celebrities, but it's like who the fuck cares? It
I
was,
I I knew it was going to be a glorified show. I just didn't know how extreme they were going to go, and they definitely took it to the extreme.
yeah,
They were beating certain things with a dead horse. Like, yes, we know, motherfuckers, we are watching you on Netflix. Yes, we know Netflix. Yes, we know Netflix. Yes,
yeah,
we know it's on Netflix. Thank you. We appreciate it. Around the world, we know.
yeah. So yeah, just,
I will
like,
say this.
just hopefully they do it better next
A
year
very, a
or next
very,
week or
a
tomorrow.
very, a very corporate show. I think the matches were, for the most part, okay. I would say all the matches were average. It wasn't a great match. Um,
I felt like the first match was probably the best, but obviously that got
yes,
into a shit ton of shenanigans. The Liv Rhea match wasn't bad, but I also didn't feel like it was like anything especially different from what we've
no,
seen from before them. The
no,
Jay Drew match was definitely a disappointment.
Yes.
I'm,
That was
I
it was a bit
think
underwhelming.
yeah, again, I'm getting the Cornette influence in my ear. They don't think much of the in-ring work from either Uso, and I think that could maybe be starting to rub off on me. But I mean, Jay is just so super over right now.
I
So
they're both good in-ring workers. The match was average. It was I don't want to say it
yeah.
was I think it was a bit underwhelming. And here's the thing.
I was surprised Jay won. I was surprised by how short it was.
I think the fact of the matter of those matches that night too is we know there was a match that was cut out. There was promos that went longer. So I'm not surprised some of those matches weren't great. They were just average. And listen, the Punk Rollins match it was underwhelming just due to the fact that I know both can do better. And there was a lot of sloppiness in there with using each other's finishers and this,
Mhm.
that, and the next thing and other things of that nature.
Yeah.
So it was an okay match. It definitely wasn't the best from either one of them.
Yeah,
Um,
I want to see better out of them. So like I'm
yeah,
hoping that they're
yeah,
not done, and I can't imagine that they
they're
are.
not.
It's like the pedigree on the table obviously didn't look good. It almost felt like maybe they were feeling each other out a little bit too much, or that they were holding back.
Yeah, like the pedigree in the table wasn't didn't look good. There was a point where I think Punk did the foot stomp to Rollins that didn't look good. And then the finishers they were doing were just very, I don't know if they were tired. They were trying to go at it too quickly and tired themselves out too quick because of the time constraints and the shit they were trying to fit in because I think all the matches had time taken off because of all the promos. That's
Yeah,
another aspect you have to think about. So I did find it
and
funny.
all the commercials. I mean, maybe
Yeah,
I obviously I wasn't like timing them or comparing
dude,
them to when they were on USA, but it felt like the commercials were longer.
they were longer and some of the when I'm watching it, you went to a commercial and 5 minutes later we're going to another commercial break. Like,
Yeah.
wait, they were very off. The other thing I found funny is the ending of that Punk Rollins match was the ending of the Punk fucking Moxley match. They did a side by side of that, and I found that I was like, it's when they did it, I'm like, that looks familiar. I'm like, that looks familiar. Where do I remember seeing that from? And then the next day, the internet people, they put a side by side of when Punk beat Moxley. They did the same, pretty much same setup.
I also
I was like, okay,
one thing I want to say too, I find it really funny how a lot of people were like, oh, Punk's trolling AEW because he was wearing the jacket that he wore at Wembley with like the X's on the back. And a lot of people were pointing out, dude, he wore that jacket back in Ring of Honor.
yes, he did.
So it wasn't an AEW troll.
But they're unfortunately they're gonna tab it to that because
Well,
of
that's
that
the thing.
situation.
If you're doing that,
If Punk's doing it intentionally and not telling people, fine. That's his ultimate troll getting back at AEW if he still
right.
feels like he needs to. At the end
But
of
if
the
that
day, though,
but if that's what you're leaping to think then too, then you're an AEW fan, then yeah, Punk's living rent free in your head.
correct. Correct.
So, but
It's the
yeah,
most,
it's
relevant thing that I could think of that's negative about Punk is being in AEW and all that
yeah,
stuff.
but
So they're gonna tag everything he does to that if there's some
yeah,
resemblance to AEW. I get it. It makes me
but but
laugh. It makes me
it's like
chuckle.
I was definitely hoping for better from Punk and Rollins.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
100%.
because mostly because it's like I like Punk so much as a character that I don't want to think that he's done, but it's going to start getting to the point where I have to wonder if he is.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you with
And
that.
again, his body went through hell too, and he's been off for so long, and we'll have to see. We'll see what happens when we get to the Rumble in a few weeks.
We'll see how
Um,
2025 plays out.
so yeah,
It's
we'll see. And I'm
anything
gonna
like
try
I've
to. And again, there's no point in me trying to be overly pessimistic about shit. It's like if I think something's bad in wrestling, yeah, I'm going to call it bad. But it's like I'm also not going to like really think about it for more than a few minutes because it's not that important, But whatever. But anyway, so
listen, at the end of the day, professional wrestling is entertainment that is a male soap opera that is already
mhm,
scripted.
right, but it's not what my life revolves around. So yeah,
It's like me getting upset about Days of Our Lives. I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
And trickling down, and so are the days of our
How
lives.
did you kill Sonny on General Hospital? How dare you?
Whatever Kevin Nash said in that thing.
Oh boy.
Oh, real quick, because I don't remember if I mentioned it or not when we were talking about AEW. Um, I don't know that they've released any information about what their max viewership has been through the first 2 weeks, and
I haven't
that's kind of more telling than anything else.
I haven't looked. I
Yeah.
haven't even tried to look.
No, I mean, if they haven't, and again, I'm just saying, yeah, because like I said, I don't know for sure, but I think that's what I've seen, or in this case, really haven't seen. If they haven't released anything about what their viewing numbers have been on Max through their first two shows, it means one of two things. It means they don't know, which isn't great, or it means they're nothing to brag about, which is bad. So, but anyway, so back to WWE real quick here. So for the end.
Yeah, we can end it on the
Dun, 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 dun. When it comes crashing down and you're booed inside. Dun, 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 dun. You gotta plug your beer, it don't help to hide. Dun, 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 dun. Well, you hurt my Trump and you hurt my bro. I gotta be a man, and I lost it. So I didn't have that prepared or anything. So,
oh,
uh,
that was good ad libbing. That was
so
great.
yeah, I mean, I've said this. I'm completely done with Hulk Hogan.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm completely done with Terry Bollea. I decided not to buy the Hallmark ornament of him, because I was just like, I will admit, for me, him coming out so much in favor of Trump just kind of really just made me go once again, why do I like this guy anymore? He's a horrible person. He's done horrible things. He's never apologized for that. There's all these apologies for him online saying he apologized, and it's like he issued a statement that didn't really seem to be very contrite. And then there was the thing where he supposedly apologized to the whole locker room, where we had, I remember Titus O'Neil and the New Day guys. They basically all said his apology was a "I'm sorry I got caught" apology.
yeah. I do know he has had one-on-ones, private conversations with some of them people. Here's the thing. Besides, I'm not gonna the politics portion put to the side. Um, I get where you're coming from with that. For me, it's more or less, listen,
Brother.
the whole sex tape,
Listen, brother.
um, the whole sex tape. I mean, I'm still not uh, Bubba the Love Sponge, I think, used Hogan, um, and whatnot, but nonetheless, what he said in the video, what he was caught saying on the video about who his daughter Brooke was dating, unacceptable. That doesn't make a difference. I can care less. Half-ass apology. I know he's spoken to others individually from reports that I've read. Fine. There's people who have forgiven him. He's found Christ, whatever.
Oh, don't even
Unfortunately,
get me started on that.
well, here's the thing. For as much as all that is kudos to him for doing that, here's the thing. Apparently, your daughter doesn't believe you because your daughter has stayed away from you in your public life. And there has to be a reason for that. So, um, she probably still fully does not forgive her father, um, for things that he's done, and rightfully so. I don't blame her. The other thing too is Hogan has not, should say Terry Bollea has not put himself in good, um, has not done interviews very well. So,
Mhm.
case in point, I'm sorry, but when you are on the Logan Paul podcast and you make a comment about how the WWE universe can forgive Chris Benoit for what he has did in his life, then they should definitely be able to forgive you for what you did. That's not a good look. It's not a good analogy and not a good comparison.
Right.
Um,
Because excuse me, Hulkster. Who the fuck forgave Chris Benoit?
Yeah. I don't know who.
I missed him being forgiven.
Same. I don't know what people he's talking to. But
Right. It's like that's a whole thing where it's just like, where the fuck do you come up with that?
I, dude, it blew my mind when I read that. And the only and some of the things too, when he was on the little tour he was doing with Trump and promoting his beer and doing stuff for Trump's tour and some of the comments he's made on the tour. Oh, that's gonna get me heat. Yeah, dumbass. I don't care if you're drinking or getting drunk. You're holy man found God, but yet you're drinking too much of your beer and then going on stage and saying stupid shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
people need to
you
pull you back and get your head out of your ass because that's also not a good look. You're just doing more and more time after time to put yourself in that position. And listen, Undertaker's a Trump person too. He voted for Trump, but you know what? They didn't boo
he had
him
Trump
when
on his
he,
podcast.
yep. And you know what? They didn't boo Undertaker when he came out. No matter if it was music was playing or not, you'd still be able to hear the boos. And
Right.
then not booing him,
Which proves that it's more than just his Trump support as to why they booed him. So anybody
yeah,
who's saying, "Oh, I can't believe all these libs were booing him just because he supports Trump," missing the point for 400, Alex.
yeah, had nothing to do with that. I'm not going to say nothing. Part of it did, but
Yeah,
the
that's
rest of
it's
it,
part of it. I'm also not going to
yeah,
say
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not part of it,
I,
but it's not all of it.
I would say it's a quarter of it, and the other three quarters is all the other shit he's fucking done.
Yeah.
That's really the gist of it. 100%.
Yeah. I mean, what's sad about this is like what this really comes down to for somebody like me who grew up loving Hulk Hogan, nay, worshiping Hulk Hogan. Um,
Same for the most part.
you realize then, of course, that yeah, it's exactly what he said at that Gawker trial. And that's another reason why I'm pissed at him because yes, I feel like he had the right to sue Gawker, but he was, of course, being used as the puppet by a fucking tech billionaire who had issues with Gawker.
Yeah,
And that's the only
100%.
reason why he was even able to sue Gawker is because that motherfucker bankrolled him. But anyway, it's
Yes.
like he says, of course, I wasn't talking about Terry Bollea, the man here. It's like, I'm talking about Hulk Hogan, the character. It's like, yeah, and thank you for once again proving how Terry Bollea, the man, ain't anything like Hulk Hogan, the character. Now, of course, you can also say, well, Hulk Hogan, the character, wasn't always the nicest guy. He would do underhanded things in matches. And it's like, yeah, he would do those to heels who had done them consistently and everything anyway already, blah, blah, blah. And we're talking about Hulk Hogan here. We're talking about 80s WWF Hulk Hogan. We're not talking about Hollywood Hulk Hogan from WCW, because
Hmm.
obviously, in a lot of retrospect, that's obviously much closer to who he actually is. And again, I'm
And
also not talking about
hindsight's
Hulk,
the more you think about it, yeah.
right? And I'm also not talking about Hulk Hogan, the backstage politic or the "that doesn't work for me, brother" guy. I'm talking about the character he was supposed to portray in his fucking theme music. Fight for the rights of every man, but he admits that he's racist. He makes racist comments. When he has the opportunity to distance himself from that, he's at a fucking Trump rally talking about Kamala Harris being Indian, and he starts going, "How?
Yep.
Not that Indian, you fucking idiot!"
Ignorance. Ignorance is bliss, man.
And doing the whole, "Oh, how, white man."
So disappointing.
Talk about something
So,
that's racist. I mean,
so disappointing.
so you got to wonder again, who's in his inner circle. I mean, I've heard some people say, "Oh my God, I feel so sorry for Jimmy Hart being out there." Yeah, I kind of do too. But you know what? If Jimmy Hart's still standing by this guy through all this stuff, it makes you wonder about Jimmy Hart.
Mhm. To a point, yeah.
And yeah, obviously he's just out there. And here's the thing too. I know he put his, everybody say, "Oh, Hogan didn't really wrestle," but obviously you're damaging your body by doing that shit. Everybody
Correct.
knows that. And obviously we know Hulk's had a lot of I'm sorry, Terry's had a lot of surgeries.
Yes, a lot.
He looked terrible. He didn't look like he would have been able to walk down to the ring.
No.
So that's maybe another reason why again you see that hey, this is why you don't do steroids because you will pay for it in your later years when it starts eating away at your fucking bones and limbs and muscles and everything. But I the biggest thing too is that the racist shit, Mark Henry made comments this week. I don't know if you saw him, where he, like, after everything happened, he said he offered to take Hogan on like a tour of like black colleges and stuff to maybe try to help him get some perspective, and Hogan refused.
Really? I
Yeah.
didn't see that.
Yeah,
That's
go look those up
disappointing.
then too. 'Cause I'm not going to doubt Mark Henry like that. 'Cause Mark Henry has always struck me as being a pretty goddamn straight shooter.
He is
You know,
100%.
so so that's disappointing too. Where it's like somebody offered is not to shun him or cut ties with him or criticize him, even just as a hey, put his arm around him, like Pee Wee Reese did to Jackie Robinson, you know, and be like, let me show you,
Yeah.
let me help you understand. And the response was essentially, that doesn't work for me, brother.
So sad.
It is.
But
But
yeah, I found God, but you can't do that.
they were several months ago, Cornette played clips of him on one of those religious shows. I don't know if it was like the 700 Club or something else, where he's talking about his faith in God and everything. And the host is like fawning all over him and everything. And it's like,
Yeah, I know who
it
that
was
is. That's,
akin to when
yeah.
Fox News interviews Trump. It was making excuses for him. It was making apologies for him. It was like just letting him lead the conversation and just say all these meaningless platitudes and everything. But so like the racism, the Trump support, the overall disingenuousness of him, if that's a word.
Yeah,
Disingenuous. I'm not sure. I'm
doesn't matter if
tripping
it's a
over
word.
words
I
here.
get it. We're going to use it.
Yeah. He just comes off as fake. He comes off as a shill, which is what he was doing. He was shilling his piss water, as I'm going to refer to it. Some guy on Facebook assured me it tasted similar to Yingling, which was funny because then I used that when I saw some guy say, "Oh, we need some of that real American beer up here in PA," and I just said, "I've been told it tastes like Yingling. Just drink that, dumbass." I didn't
I
say dumbass
actually
because I didn't want to get flagged, but
not gonna lie. I actually want to try it because I'm very curious. I like to try new shit anyway. I'm curious to see what it tastes like.
the guy convinced me that one of the reasons he tried is because it was being sold for at a low price and the servers were obviously being paid to push it.
Mm.
Like I guess
So
they even said they would like we get bonuses for like amount of we sell, and I was like, well, shit. Even I might have tried it then under those circumstances. Help these servers who are obviously getting underpaid.
what I like to do sometimes though was when I'm looking for beer, because I can't drink a lot of high wheat or high hops content in beer because of my allergies. But with that being said, well, I know they have it up there too, where you go to like Wegmans or a food store or whatever, and they have like create your own six pack, and they have a plethora of like choices. If I see it on there when I'm creating one of my own six packs one day, I'll grab one and put it in my create my own six pack. Whatever. I'm not losing out because I'm getting five other beers that I want, so it doesn't make a difference. And I'll try it and see how it is, but
Yeah,
it's not something I'm going to support. Yeah, people will be like, well, you're supporting it because you bought one. Well, yeah, I guess so. But I'm just curiosity. I just want to, try it and see how it is.
yeah,
Curiosity killed the cat, but pleasure brought it back. So just chill out with that, people. But yeah,
yeah. So it just, but all that, and again, it's like it always comes off as like you know, people who are like salesmen who are like scamming for something or shilling for something. Again, it always comes off as being disingenuous. But with Hulk Hogan, the character that you see out there, brother,
brother.
it really always comes off as that because remember, this is a guy who said he was offered the George Foreman grill first. This is the guy who said that he was supposed to be the bass player in Metallica. Just all these other things. This is a guy who said he wrestled, three times in the same day because he crossed the international date line and he wrestled 400 days a year. Just all this other shit that everybody knows are just so full of fucking horseshit. Like, oh, Andre was 800 pounds when I body slammed him. I tore every muscle in my back and then Andre died right after. It's like everybody, I think, is just finally now wise to his bullshit. But
Yeah.
with like everything that he's ever seemingly attached his name to as like a product, it always seems like it's always because somebody else has already done it. Austin's got his beer, so now Hogan's got to have his. And notice how Austin seems to stay away from WWE a lot now.
Yeah,
Do you
he
ever wonder
does.
why?
He does. I
Maybe it's
think
because he's
he's
just content to be himself.
Yeah, he is. When they need him, if it's the right time, he'll come back. But otherwise, I think he's good where he's at.
Yeah, or maybe he's like, oh, you know what? Or maybe he's kind of like Fournette. Like Fournette's like, I'm not traveling anymore and I'm doing this or that, which is why I don't. One of the reasons I don't think
And
we'll ever see the Midnight Express and Cornette get inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame because I don't know if Cornette will be willing to leave his home. Uh,
the other
but
thing
maybe
too,
Austin's just like, yeah, you know what? I don't feel like leaving home unless they pay me a shit ton of money, and WWE is going to be like, we'd like you to come, but we're not paying you that much, Steve. So
yeah. I mean, and the other thing with Steve too is like, he's been working on trying to reconnect with his kids too from all that stuff. Till this day, he's still doing that. So, you know,
yeah. And
there's more important
he's
things in
been very
life
open
than
about how he lost his daughters and
yeah.
stuff. So it's like, I
That's
get it.
important to him,
And
to build that relationship.
yeah, and I commend him for that because he's prioritizing that, which is good. So,
Yeah.
but so just kind of try to wrap this up real quick on Hulk. I mean, obviously it didn't work well. Obviously, they're still running pre-tape promos for him talking about the Saturday night's main event that's in like I think 2 weeks. Um,
He better not show up.
somebody claimed, of course, I don't know, I wasn't there. They were showing some of those pre-tape commercials with him on the during SmackDown on Friday night when they were in Portland,
Hmm.
which I guess would also classify as like kind of a liberal city. Um, he was apparently getting booed then as well, supposedly. Don't know.
I have to
But there's
look
like
into
talk
that.
about, well, they may lean into it now and like, have him be like heel, they bring him back out again. And I just want to slam the brakes and say, why would you even bother?
Don't entertain it. There's no need
What
to.
good does a broken down 71-year-old Hulk Hogan being a heel do for WWE in 2025? You only ever bring him back out for the nostalgia pop. And if he's not going to get a pop, what's the point of him going back to being Hollywood Hulk Hogan? Somebody said, oh, they should form it. I saw this Facebook comment. This is why I need to probably get off Facebook, dude, just so I don't read stupid shit. Somebody said, oh, they should do a new NWO where he's the manager and it should be Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, and Drew McIntyre. And I just replied and I said, why would you have those three guys have Hulk Hogan as their manager when all three of those guys are more than capable of speaking for themselves? You have a manager with people who can't talk. God, tell me you don't
Hilarious.
understand a fucking thing about wrestling.
Dumb, dumb. Well,
So it's just maybe hopefully they'll just let him fade into the goddamn sunset.
yeah, just do pre-recorded shit and don't put them on live anymore. Listen, it's gonna be up to them. I don't know. But all right, folks. Well, the duo was back, one less wheel down. But I think we nailed it. I think we did a
Yes,
good job.
hopefully next week will be a trio.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, back to trios. I think we did a damn good job, just the two of us, because it was just the two of us.
yeah, we didn't have Jeremy interrupting our amazing thoughts with his
I know,
shtick.
I know, absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen,
So,
mm,
real quick though, before we go,
okay,
um, are we planning to live stream the Rumbless?
yes,
Okay, so that's 3 weeks from yesterday,
right.
right? Okay, yeah, because we can live stream the Rumbless this year, but not next year.
Yeah, I'm not getting up that fucking early to do that shit.
Well, it's not just that for me, of course. I'm
I
not
know,
watching that
it's
show.
in the country that's going to, but yes,
I mean,
yes, we'll be live streaming the Royal Rumble, people, because it's one of my favorite pay-per-views, at least for
it's
this
always
year.
been my favorite pay-per-view, which is why, of course, I'm so disappointed about the Saudi bullshit, but I
Yeah,
can't do anything about that. So
nope, money talks, money talks. But, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. This will be posted up in a couple days, hopefully on Wednesday, which is the 15th of January. Happy New Year to everyone. Hopefully, everyone has a great 2025. Hopefully, we
hopefully
have a
that will
great
be there the next time you
2025.
hear from us.
Oh, yeah, soccer needs to take out the Star Wars stuff, even though it's still cool, but it's all good.
Well, I gotta get the damn Christmas decorations down. I've been very slow to start disassembling my trees. So
Yes, yes, indeed. Time to move on to the next holiday. But I guess we'll use as what Jeremy would say. Thank you for watching, and I hope you finished with us.